Chris? Do we still want to do a little tech stuff or get going? Good.
It's okay.
Okay. So I'd like to call to order the regular meeting for San Ynez River Water Conservation District Improvement District 1 for October 17, 2019. Madam Secretary, can I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Trustee Harlan Bacardi.
Here.
Trustee Parker.
Here.
Trustee Jones.
Here.
Trustee Mike Bacardi.
Here.
President Clay.
Here.
Thank you.
Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, have we posted everything in accordance with the law?
Yes, the agenda was posted in compliance with Government Code 54950 and specifically Section 54956 related to special meetings, and also the district's Resolution 340.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm going to move on to item number 4, public comment. And any member of the public that wishes to speak about something not on the agenda, if we could keep it to 3 minutes or less, combination total of everyone, less than 15, I'd appreciate it. I have some speaker slips, and as I talked to Mr. DeCroce and Franz prior to Ms. Komarowski, I think, Ms. Komarowski, you have one that is not on the agenda that you'd like to address?
Right.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Jeff. Mine's really quick, it's under 3 minutes. It's just a brief reminder that it's been almost a year since you asked staff to look at water rates. The idea of either freezing them at current levels or even decreasing them across all classes. And this was supposed to be accomplished mid-year with the new Bartle report. It's now October and nothing has been done about this, so I'm wondering if we customers can expect another increase in both our meter fees and our usage charges on January 1st. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anybody else? No. Okay. Item 5, have the board go adjourn to closed session?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's the next item. Yes, sir.
Okay. Whoa. Yeah, I didn't, yeah, okay.
So the board will hold a closed session to discuss the following item, A, public employee appointment, job title, general manager, under section 54957 of the government code. So we will go into closed session officially at 3:06. Rewarding experience as far as forward to continue that in future times. Thank you very much.
All right.
And I can say with confidence that this was part of the plan that we set out early on, a couple of years, or 2 years and a few months ago, when we initially hired Peter, that he would be a great candidate to succeed me, and we had that part of the plan. My plan was 5 to 8 years from that point. However, due to health conditions, it's best laid plan got compressed to January 2nd. So I have all the confidence in the world that Peter can operate the district, run the district. It'll be a seamless transition, and it'll work very well. So again, my thanks to the board and to the previous board for all of the confidence instilled that I have. So, I appreciate everything. It's in good hands with the new skipper at the helm.
The board shares your sentiment, Chris, that's for sure.
It'll work out very well.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move on to item number 7, consideration of minutes of the regular meeting of September 17th, 2019. Nothing on it?
A good, oh, that was one grammar error for correcting myself.
Brett? Someone want to move?
Move for approval.
I'll second that, Jim.
All in favor? Passes 5-0. Approve the minutes for September 17th. Let's move on to item number 8, consideration of the minutes of the special meeting of October 4th, 2019. favor? Aye. Passes 5-0.
Who made the motion?
Lori did, and I think Brad, did you second it? Yeah, Brad seconded it. Item number 9, additions or corrections to the agenda. Anybody got anything?
Not this afternoon from me.
This is a special meeting because of all day.
Yeah, it's a special meeting.
All right, this is your.
No? Okay. Item number 10, consent agenda. Mr. Manager, would you like to take us through that?
Just real quickly, consent agenda items, 1 through 7, all of the information that is under CA1 is all updated every month. So I try to give the board as much information without going through such heavy detail. So it's summarized under CA1. Anything in bold that, bold type CA2 and on is new information, whether it's Central Coast Water Authority or State Board process, biological opinion, it's all updated in full for the machine contract. We will talk about those a little bit later in the contract information. Just real quickly for the month, again, water production was down about 109 acre feet, or 22.1% less water demand. So we still have conservation in full speed. So that's working well, and it always will work well. I think this again, we talked about the new standards, and this is the standard of water use. We'll just learn how to conserve and to use water very wisely and efficiently. So that's it on the consent agenda. The board has another question on that.
Anybody have any questions on the consent agenda? Would someone like to make a motion to accept it in its entirety?
We'll move.
Second. All right, all in favor? Aye. Passes 5-0. Item number 11, the manager's report, item A, district administration.
In your blue folders, you will find the monthly financial statements of revenues and expenses. For this month, September, the income or revenues exceeded the expenses. You'll see in both the bar chart and the pie chart. Both pages, the second page is the expense page, shows how those expenses are distributed through each category of accounts. 70% of our expenses goes to source of supply, and the balance is 30% overall as other items. From the statement of revenues and expenses, you can see September versus August, slightly less water sales in September. We're going to see water sales drop because water demand drops in the low demand period. So that's going to begin this month. We'll see a little bit of a change. Agriculture water is going to drop substantially. The harvest is gone. It's happening. So there'll be one more good hard watering for the vineyard folks, and then they set their roots and they're off for the rest of the season until springtime. So we're going to see a change there. Also, demand is typically changed in the wintertime when we have cooler temperatures and hopefully rain. So we're seeing that already approaching over California soon, and let's keep our fingers crossed. The rainfall pattern will do what it did last year, the normal above year. So our sales revenues were slightly less by 1.07% compared to August sales revenues. Throughout the statement, the only item that is extraordinary for the month on page 204 under infrastructure expenses, that's Bradbury Dam. The safety dams payment was made, and that's $26,975.88. That's the 50-year contract that we're obligated to repay those safety dams repairs that were done to Bradbury Dam. And so we've got somewhere in 30 to 40 years left of paying that cost. Other than that, nothing extraordinary. All the same, pretty much the same costs and expenses that we had in the prior month. If you look at the September The net income after revenues less expenses, about $350,489.89. For the year to date, that's July through September 30. The district has accumulated $874,929.22 to this point in time. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to help you with answers.
Ryan, you have any
We're
questions?
good.
Okay.
So in your board package, the next item is the approval of accounts payable. You'll find that in your handout as well, in your folder, so you have a warrant list for a total of $529,584.48, and the recommendation is to approve the warrant list and pay the bills.
That's what I was looking at. That's what I was looking at.
Howard, it's the same last one.
Second to last, 22662.
That's the architect that's working on our.
Oh, the building, right,
Okay.
okay. Just looked at that instead.
That's structural, he's also the architect and structural engineer, so he's our both. So we're working on the.
Any other questions? Arne?
That drawing on that building, I thought last month we gave some kind of correction. Okay, it was 54 feet on the drawing, it was 46 feet, isn't it, 54?
Right, those are all, yeah.
This drawing, same error, I think.
Those are all.
Doesn't matter.
All the red lines are noted and sent, so.
Questions, anyone want to move to pay the bills?
I would approve the warrant.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
That's the figure was pretty busy this month.
Can I address that, Ron?
That's the figure was pretty busy.
Right, I just would like to address that because the number is a bit potentially not misleading, but it doesn't tell the full story there. As you know, our consultants, both Chuck Hansen, our expert biologist, and our hydrology engineers are
I know that.
retained through Best and Krieger, and so to maintain their work that we do for the state board process and for the section 7 consultation, it is run through BBK, and so they are experts, invoice the law firm invoices us, we pay the law firm pays the consultants, and that is, it's a standard practice throughout the industry to best maintain attorney-client privilege for those sensitive expertise matters, and in particular, our expert biologist, Chuck Hansen, he's had a big company over the years. He's in, I'd say, the waning stages of his career. He holds on to a few very favorite clients, ID1 being one of them, and it's a one-man shop. It's Chuck and his wife who does the billing, and the invoice for Chuck Hansen that's included in this number for Best and Krieger happens to go back to May. Chuck apologized for that. But it's approximately $22,500 for fisheries work that has to do with the Section 7 reconsultation we're working on with reclamation, and for the state board proceedings. We all know that we came out with a draft order, we had reviewed that, we had a hearing September 17th, we went through all of that, so Chuck has been heavily involved in both of those processes. So not only were there a bit higher legal fees to have Steve Anderson from BDK be involved in the state court proceedings, but this does represent 4.5 months worth of fisheries work for Chuck Hansen. We apologize, but it's a lump bill from him. So that's why it appears out of the order.
Yeah, thank you, Pedro, appreciate that. Item number 2, subsection 2, surplus property disposition.
Okay, this is, the staff report, in order for the district to maintain inventory and operation, it is advisable to have a policy for identification and disposition of surplus property other than real property. So this has nothing to do with the district's land, or improvements on this land. This is basically fixtures and disposable properties, anything ranging from a computer to a mouse to a vehicle. So So this is specifically related to this. The purpose of this is to establish a procedure for efficient and cost-effective disposition of this surplus property and to ensure that we have internal checks and balances to do so. It remains the intention of the district to first seek opportunities to reuse everything that we have. And, we've stored and have equipment and parts and materials going back to the 60s. And it's just time that we need to start recycling some of those 1960s vintage parts and materials and things that we just hold on to forever. We're going to reuse them. So, and there's other more modern items like our trucks, our 1996 Dodge truck, for instance. We need to sell that and rather than send it to auction for for less than $100 return, we can get we can put it out to first bid to our employees and then to the public following that. So this procedure, this policy identifies that procedure, and we go through the definition of property. We talk about the less than $5,000 value of those surplus items. The more than $5,000, how it's going to take place. So if it's less than $5,000, it goes through the general manager. Any more than $5,000, the board must declare the property to be surplus. So there's always a procedure that's involved. And going through this, I'm just going to summarize this. There's guidelines for that surplus property, including computer equipment and sensitive data. All of that needs to be cleared and cleaned off those computers when they become obsolete. And we just learned that Windows 7 is no longer supported by Microsoft. So we have multiple computers that operate on that framework of Windows 7. So therefore, anything that happens on Windows 7, we don't get any support for it. So this is planned obsolescence by Microsoft to turn computers over, and I'm sure they're in operation with Dell and all the other guys. So this is another type of situation where we have to take items out of our use because they're not obsolete because of age, just because of technology, and that's always going to happen. Our phones are a perfect example.
Yeah.
So what we do on those guys for surplus property, we have employee written bids, and then we have public sealed bids. There's presentation, as we always do, and opening those bids, and then acceptance or rejection of those bids. We also have an auctioning service provision that if we feel those items need to go to auction, you can send them to auction, and then as is with no guarantees. So we're
as is, yeah.
There's no liability back on the district. Also for donation to public or nonprofit entities, when you find something that we no longer is useful, for instance, one of the polyethylene tanks that has been sitting in our yard since the Safety of Dams project happened in 1999, and the sun's bleaching, and we just find when a nonprofit comes along and says, hey, we might be able to use that to store water. Okay, fine, it has no value to the district anymore except it is taking up valuable yard space. So this allows that type of activity to happen. So we actually Mary did a lot of work on this to make sure that it was all the corners were pretty closed on the document, and this is a very good way of disposing our equipment and those items that need to be recycled or sold off that are no longer useful to the district. And do everything and do those things that no longer are functional. This is a recommendation to the board would be to approve resolution 793, adopting the surplus property disposition policy. Questions, needs?
I have some public comment on that. Do you have some public
He
comment?
answered my question.
Did he? Okay, so we're all good on
Yeah,
that?
thank you.
Fantastic. Go ahead, Rick.
Okay, I've read through it, and one thing I don't understand, why would our employees get first bid? I think the customers should have first bid right, and then general public, not employees. That just doesn't seem right. You know, why would employees get first right to bid on this equipment?
Well, there's some things that even the public may not even care about. If it's a ream of paper that sat in our vault for the last 15 years and it's, not worth a penny. We shouldn't go out to the public and have a sealed bid process. That takes a lot more time for doing something like that.
I could maybe see for a ream of paper, but for a vehicle, a old pump and tools, I think our public, I saw that and I didn't like that one bit, tell you the truth. I go, no, that's like, we have our own little hoard and our people get first dibs on it. I didn't like that at all. I'd like to, if it's not going to the customer's first shot, because they bought it, customers bought that stuff. If not that, then the general public, but not giving inside stuff. I don't like that.
Aren't they kind of all one and the same?
What's that?
General public is a customer.
Right, but not all general public.
They pay taxes every damn year whether they're a customer or
No,
not.
general public can be someone in LA, so you're not listening to me.
They're paying taxes every year whether they're a customer or not. Look at your tax bill.
Some.
Yeah, not
On
it.
your property tax bill.
You're
It's not
missing
much,
my
but
point.
44
You're
bucks
missing
a
my-
year for
Anyway,
100 years is quite a bit.
I'm making my point. I don't think that we should strike all with employees. It should be either general public or customers. That's my, you talk about perception.
No, forgive me, I think I like employees or customers in general, we got three. What was the list of priority?
Priorities, if we had it, would be customers
Customers.
and then general public.
Okay.
Employees are general public, so they can bid as a general public.
So they're behind customer, okay.
Yeah, or if they were a customer, they could.
One and the same, right, okay.
So when we go to do public bids, we have to go through a process. If again, that takes quite a bit of staff time to go through that public bid process. We have to advertise, and there's some things that are just not worth advertising. A fax machine is a great example. We have 3 fax machines that are absolutely obsolete, and we are now paying to dispose of that. So we would offer them to the public, which then we have to go out to public bid, we have to post it in the paper, we have to do a number of things that cost money and staff time to do that. We offer it to employees first. If no employees, if they don't want a fax machine, then we can either dispose of it or put it out on.
You can
notice.
get those miles, then put it on a bulk stack, here's what it is. And, make it simple. For all those nominal items. But for trucks, because we were talking about that pool vehicle, we understood, that's not chump change out there. And, I think we got equipment stuff. Even steel that we don't use that back again.
We usually have a recycling center on the steel.
Good.
Yeah, the one thing I think, and I certainly, I don't have a lot of emotion on either side of this. However, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm hearing you say that there's a definite possibility that by offering it to the public first, we could actually be costing them money because we're spending more money to offer to them, so it kind of bites them in the butt. Am I understanding correctly?
If we're starting to spend money to advertise for a piece of equipment that's worth $15, and we're spending $150 for that, we'll just throw it away. Simple. I mean, there's no utility to go out to a public bid process for a $15 piece of equipment.
Is that the majority, is that the exception? Because I have been paying attention, whatever we get rid of, and again, I don't have great feelings. We're not talking about a whole bunch of
If we have
stuff.
a vehicle that we can trade in, we trade it in. If we have a
Okay.
vehicle that we
Yeah.
can get better money for, we go to auction. So these are things that, if there's a vehicle not running, that the engine just blows up in it, we're not going to, and the transmission's bad, the engine's bad, the brakes are bad, the tires are bad. We're not going to go through a whole bid process for a vehicle that is gonna cost us money to put it on the street.
Mhm.
So that's the kind of thing we're trying to do. If it's simply disposal of an inexpensive, under $5,000 item. Most items are very, like I said, fax machine 3 of them that are just not, they're ancient, and we're not gonna go and advertise for 3 fax machines, and it's gonna cost us money to do that. We're just gonna go down to electronic recycling if we can. We just wanted an opportunity to give it to employees if there was something that was worth doing. And the general manager will, decide whether it's the value of it and whether it should go to, should go to the public, or should go, just as an internal.
Absolutely.
We have another quick example is we have these small little water pumps that are handheld water pumps. They're gonna take someone to maintain them, rebuild the engines, maintain them. They're probably worth $10 a piece now. We bought them for $100. They've been put into use for 15 years, $10 a piece. Somebody's gonna have to go through and clean the carbs and probably, put a new cylinder in it. It's not worth for us to go out and advertise for that type of thing.
Any public comment on this?
Yeah, just a quick comment, because what Brad was talking about was something I was gonna mention, that they think that the customers pay for these things, so the employees getting first dibs on it, sort of stuff in my car also. And I wonder if there's some way around that about the advertisement. I mean, when you see in, like a state auction, there's a million things listed in one ad, there's pumps, there's, fax machines, you put all of that in one ad, and the public would come in and take a look at it, see if they wanted it. The other thing that bothers me is, I'm not casting aspersions on anyone, there is a lot of discretion to the general manager on what's hits that $5,000 limit, and, what's gonna go to, go to the employees first or whatever. And what I was thinking about when I was reading those provisions is all the trucks that have been recently replaced, that we just bought like 6 new pickup trucks. And what's gonna happen to the old ones? And if they're blown up, nobody's gonna want them, but if there's some valuable pickup trucks, I, for one, when we moved here, we're looking for used pickup trucks, and if that were offered, if I knew about those trucks, I'd want to come in and take a look at it. And I'm sure there's other members of the community that would also be interested. But again, that discretion, and I assume there's gonna be record keeping of, what these things are and who they went to, not every original paper, or anything, but, the truck was bought by this employee, or, this went to, somebody from the public bought that. So we know where all these assets went, if we pay for these assets.
Thank you, Clarence. Take it back to the board, what do you guys think? Please.
Another question, is this a brand new policy that we're here, so we've never done this before?
No.
Okay, is there any way, I don't know legally if we're allowed to do this, that we could advertise once a year and say, we're going to be having, auctioning
Yard
items
sale.
this year?
Yard
Well,
sale,
no,
are you on yard
seriously,
sale?
a yard sale, and we're gonna be auctioning these items, and that, for our customers, but any information will be posted here, so if, future information will be posted here, and then that way they know, and it's up to them to come. So if someone is looking for something, they can come and check if there's a change, they'll have to provide a bid. I don't know, just so that we can include, and I honestly don't even, I would feel comfortable having employees and customers go together.
We can merge,
With the
if the
bid.
board so chooses, we can merge these and just have a general,
Don't differentiate.
no difference between.
Whoever wants to pay.
Customer and whether it's, and remember, we're not gonna have our customers bidding on this. We're gonna have an auctioneer coming in from Los Angeles to grab all this stuff. As simple as that,
That's the part of the right there.
Does it have to be general public, or can it be customers?
Then we're starting to categorize, so if you want to not have our district employees do it, then we have general public. So.
It can't be employees and customers?
But then again, if you want to go to public bid, a public auction for this, or public process, then it has to be public, meaning everybody inside or outside the district, employee or non-employee, it's gotta go to everybody.
Well, I think it still gives our customers that fair chance to have a first grab, I guess.
We advertise in paper, and just advertise it, get it on our website and advertise it, we're gonna have, we won't do this with our scrap.
No, we'll turn it into
Those
a
are vendors that we deal with, so it's only those things like, we have a box full of about 700 mice, that's exactly. probably 70 mice in a box, and cables, and cords, and things that don't fit computers in. So, someone can take and strip out the little copper wires that are, and do that.
Nothing wrong with
See,
that.
So, that would be, you have to decide whether it's worth advertising for something like that.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, if you do all of them up, the
Just
yard
have one
sale.
thing.
And it takes time, so you have to realize all the things.
Well, we sell hot dogs and hamburgers and San Ynez days. Luther, San Ynez.
So we can take
We've
this,
already spent more money than it's worth just discussing it for the last 20 minutes.
so we can take this and just generalize this instead of B and C, which is just, the dispute, to change that instead of having it shall be employees first, and general public second, we can just make it general public. And just change the language in there, to be, let's see. So it would be the first offering, but about middle of B, middle paragraph of B, it says upon the determination, the general manager may dispose of surplus property, but must do so first by offering it, for sale to the employees by written bids. Maybe we don't even have to, we could strike that and just by first, must do so, by, just doing it off the top here, to the public.
The sealed bid process, the sealed bid process to the public, or?
You could do sealed bid too, that's another one.
Who's gonna oversee that? Who's
Open the sealed bids.
It's just more time.
I think if it's worked for 60 years, why mess with it?
well, we got 60 years worth of property to do and dispose of.
Oh, we do this every once in a while. We sell stuff.
Yeah, we just,
I
You
remember
never
past
have
the
the
Holy
rules.
we don't have the guidelines for it, and we thought we better put some guidelines in here.
Oh, okay, this
just to
part.
be up with that, because-
What is legally constraining us? Is there some law that if we don't do it, so why are we, I will lose no sleep over this, whatever. I mean, it's like a
just
know
want to
nothing thing.
make it so that, that when we do it with coverage,
Transparency there.
make it
I
full
would just post it on
disclosure.
Craigslist.
Pardon?
Post it on Craigslist.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing legally
Yeah,
binding.
I think there's something legally binding,
There's
so.
no.
And-
Walk outside the gate, someone'll steal it, you're
Post it
wrong,
on
broke it.
Craigslist and,
Yeah, go.
Huh?
I don't know.
Well,
I mean, then it goes out to the.
how much more for that water tank, how big is it? I'm looking for one.
Is there something, Peter, we're not
Or
paying
no,
attention to?
we get first
legally?
crack at something.
Okay.
Board members get nothing, general manager.
Yeah, we get nothing, come on.
Right.
We don't.
I'm looking for a 3,000 gallon
We
tank.
don't get to do it.
And the rodents won't chew holes through.
Yes.
You guys can't
I mean,
get it.
there's nothing legally binding this district.
Okay,
Certainly
okay,
don't-
great.
Don't
Happens
pay
in place.
$115 on advertising for it.
It was
you
just
know.
this was a policy we thought would be a good idea to have just as a guideline.
I think you're right on having a policy, that's definitely it, because that's property when we're getting rid of it, so we have a guideline. I think that's good. Everything I've ever seen on stuff, it's usually like, you remember on, when they give prizes stuff, no employees are allowed to apply, for the tickets and stuff, I remember that. Oh,
Raffles.
raffles and stuff, yeah, no one working there. So that's why, and it struck me a little weird when I saw employees get a first shot. I thought, that is weird, I've never seen it.
Not to speak for Mary, but I think what we did in developing this policy is sort of, from an internal perspective, we did some research.
Correct.
Looked to some other surplus disposition policies that are held by other agencies, and we used those as a go-bys, if you will, and we saw that in some other examples, and I think the intent of offering it to employees first is, and I actually am agnostic about it, but I think the intent is to try to develop a policy that's as efficient as possible from a practical standpoint. I think this is much less legal and much more practical, so to the extent that it has a property value of less than $5,000 as determined by the general manager, then, and of course, that can't just be, plucking something out of thin air. I think, you want to do comparables or something, get a reasonable estimate of the value. But if it's less than $5,000, I think the intent again seeing it from some other examples, is to offer to employees, excluding the general manager or members of the board of trustees, because it saves the cost of advertising, and it saves the process of going through offering it outside the district to non-district employees. And then for property over 5,000, then again, from an efficiency standpoint, there comes the balance. You want to offer something maybe of more value, give a broader set of the public an opportunity to buy something like that. I think, again, whether it all goes to sealed bid or auction or otherwise, the idea, what's starting to pop up in my mind, if you put it on Craigslist, for example, this is not to be disagreeable, but then that's a full-time job almost, looking, monitoring and responding to Craigslist, and people want to stop by and, I want to look at the merchandise, you take less, I think it has to, from an efficiency standpoint, it has to be something that really makes sense. Here it is, how much are you willing to pay for it? It's as is when you take it. We're not gonna haggle, we're not gonna spend days, and you can't kind of look at it 3 times, and, it's just efficiency is the goal.
I've seen them advertise a lot sells, there's your lot, they give a description, on such day between such hours, you can come inspect it, your sealed bids are due such and such a day.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are the high bidder on it, your check, whatever type of money you guys take, you have to have.
Bitcoin.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. It can be simple.
What do the feds do when you get rid of old fire equipment?
Fire equipment goes to surplus to other cities, other administrations. Vehicles go like a sealed bid. Everybody can come in. Jump up, come in. They look at the equipment on certain days. I kind of describe that. Certain days they just look, and then they do both auctions. I see GSA do actual auctions, and the other ones are a sealed bid.
$5,000 trailer,
Oh yeah, the military did this.
So we can short circuit this really quickly, and everything else would work in here. Paragraph B, we can just take from the words, the sentence that starts with, upon these determinations, the general manager may dispose of surplus property, but must do so by offering to the public, by offering the sale to the public by written sealed bids in accordance with the guidelines, and then end it at that sentence, and then take out the rest where it says, if no employee, and take that last long sentence out. I think that would cover it. So it would read, from that sentence, upon these determinations, general manager may dispose of surplus property, but must do so by first offering it for sale to the public by written sealed bids, and then the sentence continues in accordance with and ends at the district. And then that last full sentence where it says if no employee bids are submitted, that all comes out.
But we have throughout this whole document, there's employees in there a lot. There's the whole thing, employees.
That's right.
It's in there. You gotta modify it.
So, yeah, we could do that. We could take another shot at it and
Yeah.
just make it very specific to,
General
generalize to the public and let that in there. Or if, we wanna just keep on doing what we've been doing over the years and just store a lot of stuff, we can do that too. Until it rusts. Okay, we can bring it back.
Why don't we do that?
Rather than-
That's a good idea.
Yeah,
Let's
let's,
move on
yeah,
for
let's-
next time. So we can bring it back to the board, next in November.
Take that as Taylor's first job.
We can- I'm not away from you.
Might as well start keep running right away.
Okay, so we're gonna put this one on, push it to, table it to the November meeting.
Yes, great. Let's move on to item number 3, our Superior Court ruling,
Yes.
please. Let's get to that.
In your board packet, you will find a memorandum from Charles Bell. Chuck is here. Thank you, Chuck, for coming down from the Royal Monday. And what I'll do is I'm going to turn this over to Peter and Chuck and let them discuss the finality of this particular case. So, Peter, you want to just turn it?
As far as I'm concerned, if Chuck's willing, we have a memorandum in the board packet from Chuck. If you want to present that memo to the board, Chuck, I think coming straight from the council himself, the representative of the district in the matter, I think would be the most efficient way of handling it.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members. Charles Bell from Bell McAndrews and Potomac. Have the pleasure of representing the district in this litigation. As you know, it arose as a result of the election officials' failure to follow the law, which applies to the qualifications for persons who would seek election or appointment to office in the district in the November election. We brought the lawsuit to clarify the authority issue because this was really an unprecedented situation in which the election officer who makes the ultimate determination of candidates who will go on the ballot for a number of local offices failed to follow the law that was clearly applicable. And it became apparent as we, after we filed the lawsuit, I'll say that we tried to resolve the case without litigation, without further litigation, that the election official did not believe he was bound and that he had some discretion in determining whether to follow the explicit provisions of state law. So we proceeded with the litigation to a brief trial before the Superior Court in Santa Maria. It's not a trial with witnesses or discovery or all the kinds of things that occur in many types of civil litigation. It was more like an argument on the facts presented in the papers and the legal issues. And the court decision is before you. We got a tentative decision in early September, and it was modified slightly, and that together with a judgment that was issued by the court on September 20th. The court made clear that the election official had no discretion or had to follow the law. And we think that not only provides a benefit to this district, but it can be assured in the future that, and I think also to people who might seek elective office here, that if they meet the basic qualifications set forth in the water code, they're eligible to run for or serve as a member of the Board of Trustees. But I think in addition, because it was pretty clear that the election official felt that he had some discretion, in some ways acting as a judge, not like an administrative official but bound by the law, that this is beneficial to the county and its voters as a whole, who I think now can be assured that he has been given appropriate guidance by the Superior Court as to what he's to do. It's pretty straightforward. You apply the qualifications in the statute. If there are issues about that, those are to go to a court, not to be determined by the whim of an administrative official. So we have a good judgment, I think. If you look at it, the judge was very thorough. He asked us a lot of questions. He was interested in the process and how the election official might carry out his duties in the future. So one of the changes that I think the county agreed to make in the course of after the judgment was entered was that in the future the declarations of candidacy for this office will be very explicit and say that the person who is a candidate meets both the residency and property ownership requirements, so there's no doubt when a candidate is filling out those papers, they don't have a question that, well, if I don't meet both those requirements, I'm really not entitled to be a candidate for that office. So that's what the result is. We're going to be before you in closed session to discuss options for recovering the fees that the board has incurred against the county, so that the board can be made whole as much as possible. I'd be glad to answer any questions you
I appreciate your work,
Yeah,
really.
Yes.
Great job. Really appreciate it because it was really convoluted here. You know, the public was all running around. This Joseph Holland election fiscal, he really stepped outside his boundaries, and he took upon himself to be judge, jury, and lynch person, it looked like on it. And wow, and I really didn't like how we came to them with the facts, and they just poo-pooed us, and then they didn't even want to talk, really. They had to go to actual trial. You know, I was surprised that the county went that far. They didn't listen to reason, in fact. Now, do you see that often when they take it that far?
Well, that's what courts are there for, I guess, to resolve those things and
Yeah.
determine and make clear to public officials when they exceed their authority. Here we sought prospective relief because I think the election had happened. Some of the potential consequences of electing someone who didn't meet the qualification are kind of by the board. We don't have to deal with those, but prospectively, and I think it's, as I said, I think it's a benefit to the public, people who are potential candidates, and to the district as a whole in the future, so that there's.
So you feel pretty good about that in the future? We won't see Joseph Holland making another run at this? You feel it was cleaned up pretty?
Well, I can't speak for the advice that he's given or how he understands it, but I think, in fairness, that even though he wasn't willing to settle it out of court, that as a responsible official, he will be attentive to what the court said about the scope of his powers and the limitation on his powers.
Let me add a little bit to of Brad's question. Obviously, I wasn't there, but reading the statement of decision, Judge Staple, it doesn't appear, left any gray area. He was pretty direct. And so walking away from that, is that the impression that you came with, that it was pretty direct, not leaving any gray area for the future?
We're very satisfied that he made quite clear you follow the law. If there's a question about the constitutionality or any legality, that's to be decided by a court,
Okay.
not by the election official in his limited function of following the direction of the law as presented to him by the district. And I will say the district didn't give him the direction which the elections code says the district should do in this instance. Here's the requirements for candidacy. You need to follow that. Very good decision, I think. It was thoughtful, it was thorough, and it left no wiggle room.
Sure. Thank you so
I
much.
thought Judge Stafford was very nice. He quit calling him Joe Holland, and he became
Right.
the elections officer.
Yeah,
Instead of smearing him every time it came up. Oh, that was pretty nice.
Well, my comment on that is that that makes it quite clear to any future office holder.
Exactly,
It
exactly.
applies not just to Mr. Holland, but
Mr. Holland, election official, I would have done it. But now, okay, our poor customers paid for the defense, and they're also taxpayers of the county. They had to pay the county's tax to come after, so our poor customers got nailed twice, but.
well, that's in the future. We'll discuss
Closed
those
session.
issues in closed session. But I think it's kind of an important lesson to a public
Yeah.
official too.
Right.
Follow the law, and
It's
save money for your
the court.
agency and for taxpayers.
Follow along.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
You
It's
did a
been a
great
pleasure to
job.
work with you, and let me also say, a real pleasure to work with Chris, Peter, and Gary Vistad on this. Excellent counsel that you have, and they provided an awful lot of good suggestions and very useful information. We did a good job, I think, of presenting to the court the background in a very thorough. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr.
Hey,
Lawler.
wait.
Appreciate that.
Jim, may I add something to that?
Sure,
Just
please.
I also want to compliment Chuck's work and the work of his law firm. Chuck's style, as you can tell from his presentation, is straightforward, both in his oral argument to the court and the briefing. It wasn't sensational, it wasn't accusatory, it was a matter of law and policy, straight to the point. I think that aided the court greatly in narrowing down the heart of the issue and being able to issue a focused decision. Just the way Chuck administers a case, it's not as though within his shop, he assigns the research to, 3 different associates and 12 different partners. This was a focused effort by Chuck and Chuck alone within an area of his expertise, and obviously the results speak for themselves. But I want to thank and compliment Chuck for some very fine legal work.
Yeah, I'd like to mimic that response from Peter. It was a pleasure to work with Chuck. He did a tremendous job, knowing that we were on the right side of the coin, and the decision was indicating that we were right.
Absolutely.
That was a pleasure, Chuck, so thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let me turn it over to any public comment. Yes.
I'd like to congratulate you on your lawsuit against Joe Holland for 4 reasons. First, congratulations for wasting probably $100,000 in public funds on your lawsuit. I say probably because until your lawsuit is over, you won't release information on how much money you paid the Bell Law Firm and the Bernstein firm in Santa Barbara. But based on what I've been seeing in your warrants list, I'm guessing that could be around $100,000. Second, congratulations for pulling this off in secret with no input from the public. From the time you decided to sue Joe Holland last year until today, everything has been done in executive session. This means there was no opportunity for the public to comment on what you're doing and whether they think this was a wise use of their funds. Third, congratulations for forcing Joe Holland to do something which your staff could have easily prevented. Last summer, several members of the public contacted your office to ask about running for the board. We were all told that ID1 doesn't get involved in elections, so your staff couldn't tell us anything about qualifications. We were instead directed to the county elections office. So that's where we all went, but county elections didn't know that tenants can't sit on your board because ID1 had never bothered to tell them that. This meant it didn't show up in the candidate qualifications materials, and so 2 tenants ran for the board. Despite the fact ID1 doesn't get involved in elections, it sicked its lawyers on Joe Holland and demanded he remove the tenants from the ballot. However, as the statement of decision that's in your packet notes, the right to hold public office is fundamental, and ambiguities must be resolved in favor of eligibility. Because of that, Joe Holland let the tenants stay on the ballot, noting that if they didn't get elected, then the issue would be moot. And that's exactly what happened. Neither tenant got elected, so that ended the controversy. But that didn't stop your lawyers. They prosecuted the case for almost another year on the off chance there might be a future controversy over a tenant sitting on your board. Fourth, congratulations on not getting the important underlying issue of the constitutionality of your ban on tenants resolved. The judge in your case specifically said he wasn't dealing with that issue, so theoretically another tenant might still run for the board despite your lawsuit and the judgment you've gotten. So ID1 created a controversy, wasted thousands of dollars in attorney's fees litigating it, and forced county council to spend time and resources defending it. Now you have a piece of paper that says Joe Holland has to keep tenants off the ballot. This is the important public interest that your lawsuit supposedly vindicated. How the public interest is vindicated by keeping tenants off your board is beyond me. What I do understand is that if your staff had simply told the public and county officials about qualifications for the board, then none of this would have ever happened. You wouldn't have wasted all that money on a frivolous lawsuit that benefited no one but your lawyers, and that does nothing to keep tenants off your board in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, France. All right. Anything else? Yeah.
Joe?
Oh, please.
Thank you.
Kevin Walsh.
So, I was one of the candidates forced to run an election because of Joe Holland's high-handed and cavalier actions. Joe was able to enforce the landowner-owning election laws in other districts in the county that election, and had been for quite some time. Joe Holland has not protested the newly forming district in the county that has a landowner election provision in it. There's been no communication between the county or LAFCO, who is in charge of organizing that new district. And what's left out in all of this, all of it, and everybody's thing, is that he overruled his deputy, is what he did. The county actually got it right. Renee Bischoff actually got this right. In his office, his employee that reports directly to Joe Holland got it right. That's what's so amazing about this thing. Joe Holland, if you go to his website, right in the, as huge as you can get on a computer screen, welcome to the County of Santa Barbara, clerk, recorder, assessor, and elections department. He's the one assessing umpteen jillion properties in this county to make sure we're paying the right taxes in the right way. He's recording all the legal documents, births, marriages, divorces, writs and mandates of all sorts of things. And he's also the clerk responsible for making that sure it gets done in the right way. He has a lot to do, and he has very capable people. One of those capable people was Renee Bishop, who read the law, understood it, and got it right. And Joe overruled her for some reason unknown to us. We just heard from another public member, we did this all in secret. I went down to the elections, I said, Joe Holland, please, can you give me the document you sent to those candidates when you overruled Renee Bischoff? They said, oh, well, we can't give you that. It's not a public document. It's not a public document. The document that you sent to some candidate from your office is in public? I don't get it, but that's what he told me. Joe Holland remains unrepentant. That's what bothers me the most. He hasn't apologized. He hasn't said I was wrong. He hasn't said, well, I thought I was right. I was doing the right thing. He has said none of those things. His silence speaks to his arrogant unrepentance, in my opinion. And the district doesn't need to apologize for spending $100,000. The county needs to apologize for spending $100,000. Renee Bishop got it right, and for some reason, unexplained, even till today, he decided to overrule his deputy, who he assigned this responsibility to. That's what I really don't understand. The county needs to reimburse this district, not because, no messages to Joe Holland. Joe remained unrepentant, I get it, that's what you want to do. But the county is not obligated to defend illegal acts. Why they chose to defend Joe Holland's illegal action and not defend his deputy who made the right decisions action is, again, I don't get it. I find the older I get, the less I get for some reason. But I don't get why they did that. And then county council, in their misguided effort to defend Joe Holland, and I don't get this either, they quote this attorney general opinion that was for a somewhat similar situation at Helix Water District in San Diego County.
Well, I happen to know the general manager there that when this went down. I talked with the attorney who filed the quo warranto for the attorney general and for the one that was bringing the complaint. And the attorney general, it was interesting, he had two things brought before him. One was a ruling on should this guy be running or not, and the other was should the attorney general even rule on it. And the attorney general said, I'm not even going to rule on this thing. This is a issue for the courts. But Joe Holland, he decided he didn't even need to rule on it.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening. Do something.
Yeah. Okay, I believe we'll be,
We'll go into closed session on that item later and,
go on to item number 4, staff organization.
Let's see if we can get this fired up again. You want to take a second to warm this thing up?
Man.
Gonna take a minute
War.
and warm up this cold feet. Here we go. It's starting.
Basically, it's technology, huh?
Takes a minute to warm, heat up the lamp in this thing. This next item is staff organization and presentation and consideration of the staff plan. Oh, wait, take this thing on that.
Sure, that is still warming up.
And it's still warming up. I'm gonna try to put this up. The screen's a little bit small, so I'm going to, see if I can pop this up. Got that now, pop this up. All right. So, in your handouts, you're going to find a couple of items. I'm sorry the screen is narrow, but I can't figure out why it's narrow. I'm going to try this thing here. There we go. Focus. Whoa. I guess there is no focus group.
Yeah, there is.
Oh, here we go. That's as good as it's gonna get. Okay, so in your handouts, you're gonna see a couple of items. The first item will, let me back up a little bit. Every so often, we try to, put together a staff organization plan that's basically updated to show the board what our staffing level is, the approved positions for staff, and how those approved positions have been implemented over the years. So this first slide, and we're doing this because we're going to have a transition, as you heard earlier. Peter will be taking over as general manager as of January 2nd, 2020. I'm retiring due to health reasons, and we're trying to make this transition as smooth as possible. And as I mentioned to the board, my job task has been wearing 6 hats, and this model is no longer sustainable. One person with the help of very, very, very capable staff can't do the job that I've been doing over these years. So in order to make sure that people don't end up in the same position that I am, or health-wise, and if something worse happens, I was very fortunate that I survived everything, but something worse could happen. Don't want that to happen in the future. So what we've done is we've talked about staffing looking forward, a staff plan looking forward. We met with the board, created a committee to look at this, an ad hoc personnel committee, which was Lori and Brad. Because of the compressed time schedule, I had hopes that my time would be longer so we could have a longer transition time, but when the doctor's orders say, you gotta go immediately, you can't sustain your level of effort here. So we had this compressed time schedule, we had very little time to meet, we tried as a committee, we laid out some of this information, sent back and forth information to Lori and Brad, and wanted to explain where we are and what we can do in the future. So the first slide here, and you have it in your handouts, is looking backwards in time, the Board of Trustees approved positions. Now, I put 1996 to 98. Some of these positions, of course, were approved prior to 1996. General manager, administrative manager, secretary of the board were all approved back in the 1960s. So those, of course, those stayed in. Also, administrative secretaries. The word secretary has been modernized to administrative assistant instead of administrative secretaries. And some of the other positions, like the operations superintendent, that was involved prior to 1996, as well as some of the other positions. So I wanted just to go through quickly and show the board what positions have been approved over the years. So if we go to 1996 to 98, all these positions were approved even prior to 96, some of them, as I mentioned. Some remain vacant. This one is a vacant position. Operations superintendent is a vacant position. Administrative secretary and administrative secretary 2 were changed to be more appropriate. They're administrative assistants. Those were done in 1999 over on this side. An operation tech aide, that was also changed to an operator in training. Those are modernized terms now for certifications under the state of California. So these positions were original positions going back, as I mentioned, the 60s to the 90s, done in word process. Moving forward in 1999, as the district got more involved in, actually it's always been involved, but there was a need for additional staffing when we had water quality requirements. We had to produce and prepare a water quality sampling program for the Department of Health Services at that time. So in doing so, we created different positions. So we've got a hydrogeologist position that was created back then in 2001. Also a water resources associate. That's filled now, remains filled. Operations supervisor, was formed then, but it's vacant. Moving forward in 2002, we had a senior engineering position created. That position was filled from 2002 until 2010. We had the main thrust of that project position was the Zone 3 reservoir and other facilities that needed to be engineered and designed. In 2003, we created the water resources technician position, operations foreman, maintenance foreman, and there's an operation and maintenance supervisor which remains vacant at this time. Everyone that doesn't have vacant is filled at this point. 2006, there was an office manager and bookkeeper position that was created. This position remains now the administrative manager position. Maintenance worker, those are for non-certified individuals that would just be strictly maintenance, not to operate the system. Assistant general manager was created in 2010 by the board. The board requested and had a desire to have an assistant general manager. That position was filled and then vacated. An engineering position was also created in 2012. That position was filled and was vacated shortly after. When we had Chromium 6 coming into play, we were looking at having a water treatment facility. Therefore, we needed a water treatment plant operator. The board created the position. That position remains on the books, but it's a vacant position. 2015, regulatory specialist was created because of the new regulations, both the water quality regulations and just in general, more standards and regulations by the Division of Drinking Water. Also in 2015, the water conservation specialist was created, but that was not filled. Again, governor's orders stated at that time, Governor Brown mandating all water conservation efforts and reports. So we had on the books a water conservation specialist, but never filled. And then finally, in 2017, we had the legal affairs and policy manager, which is still in place up until January 2nd. And Peter will take my position. So this in word form, these are all the positions that were created going back from partly from the 60s all the way through to present day. So that's just showing the board on a word format. So what I did,
Before you leave that.
yeah, of course.
Okay, so those are the positions that have been approved. And if and when there's a need for that position, we would fill those positions.
The general manager is designated to fill those positions. The board does not fill those positions. So whenever there's a vacant position, say there's a senior, let's go to a maintenance worker. Okay, the position exists in 2008. The maintenance worker position is available for someone coming in on an entry level to do very basic maintenance work. We had that individual actually hired a couple of years ago. He's now moved into an operator in training, so we had a transition from that maintenance worker position, that went vacant, he moved into an OIT position, operation and operator in training, and is now moving through his certification process. The board does not hire or fire. So the board created the positions, and these positions remain on the book, but the board does not hire and fire any of these positions.
Okay, my question is, then, these positions could be, would be planned on to be filled, all of them?
And these positions were filled when there are needs. The hydrogeologist, for instance, was created in 2001. One of our staff members is a state certified hydrogeologist and a registered geologist. His position now is water resources manager. At that time in 2001, he was the hydrogeologist. That position doesn't necessarily ever have to be filled because we do have someone as the water resource manager that is a hydrogeologist.
But if we needed more,
Right.
you'd fill. So then, how does this fit with the budget? If you filled every position and the budget's not there, you know, see what I mean? There's a checks and the balance
Sure,
with
sure.
that. You can't fill a position, there's no money to pay
Right.
for.
And over the years, we've been very, very careful and efficient in our staff level to not exceed budgetary needs. When we do have if we had Chromium 6 come in and we needed a water treatment plant operator, none of the staff, me included, can operate a treatment plant. We have to hire that person. Therefore, July 1 or May of every year, when we begin to prepare the budget, we have to build that position into the budget, which the board approves the amount of that position. Doesn't approve the position, because the board, the positions are already approved, it would approve the dollar value of that position.
To fund that.
The fund position, correct. So, in many cases, like I just mentioned, the maintenance worker, that's a funded position, but that maintenance worker went through a certification and has moved into an OIT position, operator in training. So he was funded as a maintenance worker, now he's funded as a OIT. So there was no need for the board to come back and fund that position as an OIT.
So So we would never run into a situation where all the positions, you filled them, but we didn't have the budget, and then we're stuck trying to find more money.
No.
Okay. So you do come back to us?
And
those,
when budgetary time, if there is a position that's needed,
okay, at the budget.
at the budget time, we would, you know, in the budget that I prepare every year, we show staff, and we show the personnel and how many positions, and if we need to add a position, then that comes before the board, not the position itself, but the funding for that position. So that's how these positions are created. They're standard, by the way. This is, you know,
Right.
many water districts have these positions now. The number of positions, again, is, it varies among water agencies. Carpinteria Water District has a very similar setup that we do. They have 20, what was the number? 20 positions. Montecito Water District, 26 or 28 positions. We have 17 right now. And we're understaffed, by all means. Because we have 4 sources of water supply, we do disinfection at all of our locations. So we are running below the staff levels, and obviously, from my point of view, understaffed from the professional level, because I've been doing too many jobs and ended up having a heart attack doing too many jobs. My health was great, my stress level was not great. So the idea here is to support the next incoming general manager, which will be Pater, with the professional level staff, where that level of effort is distributed among more staff members rather than on the burden of one or two individuals.
Yeah, I'd look at like, you know, that chromium 6 is just looming out
It's
there, along with, there's that other thing that we got to start now.
Oh, the PFAS, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, okay, those could come back in the middle of the budget year, which, you know, we have no choices, we gotta do it. Do we have a buffer built in there to absorb a hit like that, you know, when the governor dictates, we have money to be able to fill that key position at that time?
What's typically done is if there is a Chrome 6, somehow the state says Chrome 6 is enacted right now, and we have to build a treatment plant. It's gonna take time to build that, of course, but then you have to staff it up. If it was mid-cycle in a budget, what we would do from a practical side is look at the budget where items are not being spent, for instance.
We would have to modify.
Do adjustment, yeah, you do a budget adjustment in those particular accounts, and you then apply money, if it's an O&M, operations and maintenance, staff, labor, you take money out of, biological implementation, for
Yes,
instance.
I understand that. I see.
CIP,
That's,
Yeah,
all of it.
right, so you can do a mid-year or mid-quarter budget adjustment and just help fill that position. And then come the standard budget cycle, then you build in the money for that particular position.
okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah,
So
that's-
so here it is in Word form. Let me see if I can find it in, sorry, I have to go through this, the screen is kind of weirded out for some reason. Okay, so here it is in graphic form. So this is the same thing that it just shows in Word form, but it's now in graphic form. Sorry it's off the screen, but I'll try that.
That's this one here?
Correct.
Okay.
So, starting from the top is the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees, under the California Water Code, appoints a secretary to the board. That secretary to the board position for nearly 20 years was me as a general manager. When Bob Parsons died in '98, I took over as that position. 3 years ago, Mary has now taken over the secretary to the board position as part of her duties. Now, you'll look and there's a legend on this. So the legend is green box, that means these positions are currently filled and occupied. The white box is they're approved by the board, and this is the 90, the
whole term,
Yeah.
and vacant, and the peach box or pink for pink, yeah, just pink.
That's proposed.
That's proposed, yes. So when we go down here, so we go Board of Trustees, and the GM, work with General Legal Counsel, Brownstein, and Special Legal Counsel, Best and Krieger. So we have, that's a filled position. Assistant General Manager, that is a approved position, but not filled. Then we have Administrative Manager, that is a filled position, and then we drop down in the ranks. I shouldn't say in the ranks. We drop down across the profile. So, starting from the left, Water Resources Manager, filled. Senior Engineer, not filled. Office Manager, Bookkeeper, not filled. These two positions were to offset, but they never, they didn't get taken off the books. The Administrative Manager remains on the books, and so does the Office Manager, Bookkeeper. Legal Affairs Policy Manager, that is currently filled. I'm gonna go down through the rows rather than go across. So Water Resources Manager, there's the hydrogeologist position, unfilled. Water Resources Associate, filled. Water Resources Specialist, Regulatory Specialist, Water Resources Technician, and finally the Water Conservation Specialist. This is all under Water Resources. We go to the next column, the next category would be engineering. So engineering and operations. So we've got the senior engineer, and operations superintendent, all unfilled. Same thing with operations supervisor and O&M supervisor. Now, if we were to do this a little differently, the O&M supervisor is years back in the 60s. We would only have a maintenance supervisor because we have two really distinct things going on. One is to operate the system, the water distribution system, meaning water's moving through the pipes, reservoirs, pumps and motors. The maintenance side of it is keeping all the infrastructure intact, replacements, repairs, betterment, all of those things. So we have two distinct categories. So we have ops foreman, those are both filled, operations foreman is filled, and maintenance foreman. We have water treatment plant and maintenance workers. So if we continue down, we have op techs, we call them op technicians, 3-level, a 2-level, a 1-level, and operator in training. So we have 3 of those operation technicians boxes filled at this point. Going to the office manager, or going under that category, we have office manager, office administrator, and that is what's being considered at this time a new position. Lesser position. Administrative assistants, 2, 1, and board administrative assistant, all filled. The lower level administrative assistant is not filled, it's vacant, and is the administrative account system. At one time, they were all, not all these positions, but they rotate as people move up the ladder to better their careers. They go from an administrative assistant to an administrative assistant 1, which leaves that position open. So that's what this kind of depicts, is position moving within the district. However, not adding positions, they're mostly internal movement. And then we go over to legal affairs and policy manager. This was, of course, the position that was created in 2017 that is currently occupied by Pater. We have a new trend. Everything is becoming legal, policy, regulatory, institutional driven. We still have our requirements for, of course, water resources, our water orders, all of our protecting our water rights. We have all of those needs. Determining where to drill a well. We still do that. We just drill a well in our maintenance yard. So we have all those needs. But we're going from, in Harlan, when are we ever going to just deliver water? We're never going to go back to just delivering water. We're now in an era of litigation, of water rights protection, SIGMA. That is going to be the single most contentious item in the state, is the SIGMA process. And it's going to pit private, public, and pumpers and owners, landowners against riparian, against prescriptive. It's going to be a monumental effort, and it's going to take a lot of time. So that's where the trend is moving.
although everything else still needs to happen, this new level, which is under the public, legal affairs and policy, is all now a new category of operations in the district. Used to be able to be handled by legal counsel. That's expanded. The legal counsel had to know what are the operations, what are your water rights, there's so many integrated parts now in it. So that's why we brought on Peter, one, because of the succession plan, but two, because of expertise in this particular professional field. And what we're doing here is under that position, we found very quickly that the saturation is already 110% in this position, 150% in this position. And what we're proposing is, in this situation, is to add a full-time equivalent, which is the government affairs associate, to help to support that position under the legal affairs. We're also talking about not having this legal affairs position, because Peter will now be shifting into my position as of January 2nd. This position would become, let's see if I can do this. I probably can't do it, so I'm going to do that. This position here would be eliminated and would be downshifted to the government affairs and policy manager. It's a lesser position, it's a lesser requirement, the job description would
There'd
not.
be two people there though, not just one.
Well, it would be, yeah, it would.
There would be two pink boxes,
Two
right?
pink boxes. This one is, I'm sorry, I fly wasn't it? This one is retitling the legal affairs and policy manager, downshifting it to government affairs and policy manager. So it's taking this position, and I could do it, I don't know if I can do it, nope. It doesn't allow me to do it. Is taking this position out and supplanting it with this lower level government affairs position. And then adding one FTE, which is the government affairs associate, to support this policy, this new government affairs.
Okay.
And then what we're proposing in the administrative side is Mary is currently, as the administrative manager, her function is truly under the assistant general manager position. So we would take this position out, the administrative manager position. She would be in this position, which she is doing now. The office administrator becomes this position at a lower level, lower salary. So that offers the support in the administrative side. The office bookkeeper is a vacant position, not to be filled. We're doing some shifting of positions, and the shift of position is Peter goes from legal affairs and policy manager to general manager. Mary moves from administrative manager to assistant general manager. And then the administrative position, it becomes a vacant, open position, and the office administrator then is backfilled at a lower salary and lower level, but still oversees the administrative group and assist Mary. So that's the only thing we're proposing. So right now we have 17 full-time, as you can see here. I'm sorry it's so blurry. 17 full-time, one part-time, which is the board administrative assistant. And then, so we're looking at 2 full-time positions to be added. So let me go, based on that, let me go to an easier chart to read, so it hopefully, I've got that. There it is. That's not it either. There it is. So in your board packet, here's simplifying it to where I'm talking about right now. So this is a simplification of that chart, just breaking it down to what we have. Board of Trustees, General Manager, Assistant General Manager. Then we go to Water Resources. These are the 3 actual staff that these should all be. This would be equivalent to a green screen. Every box would be green here. So this would be green, green, occupied, occupied, occupied. All these are occupied as effect positions. The office administrator would be the new position. These are all occupied positions right now, administrative assistants. This is the government affairs and policy manager that takes over for the legal affairs. And this is the new position. So again, this just simplifies that earlier, organization chart. So we're looking at two positions. Go back to the last thing I should have clicked on. Let's see if I got it. There we go. So, based on that, I will go through the cost of this rearrangement and adding the two positions. So, we're talking about adding the office administrator position. So this salary is $65,000, and we've done comparables with other agencies. We have the ability to go on Upwork and look at other multiple agencies that have positions of this type. So here's the salary range: $65,125 to the highest step at $85,449. So this is our 12-step range. Government Affairs and Policy Manager, this is the retitle Policy and Legal Affairs Manager. So it's 126 to 165. And then we have the Government Affairs and Policy Associate. This is the other new position. This one above is retitled. This one's new. That's $80,159 to $105, $176. And then reclassifying the Administrative Manager position. This is the range from $135,568 to as high as $184,779. So just in salaries, it's $407,000 difference to $541. Now, there are offsets and adjustments because we are taking out positions. So the administrative manager is deleted. That is a range from $107,000 to $140,000. That's going to offset the assistant general manager position. The policy and legal affairs manager, Pater's position, that's $179,000 to $236,000. That will offset the government affairs. That is much higher. So the savings is going to be $287,513, and up to, at the high range, $376,983.36. We're getting down to pennies now. So if we're to add benefits to all of these changes, the new positions and change positions, the benefits are $56,000 to $59,000. The net impact of this is $176,822.70 at the step A, all the way to step F1 at $223,147.29. That's the financial impact of all the changes. So we're adding two positions, changing some positions, and that's our net impact. Now, we've checked with the water rate consultant. This has absolutely insignificant effect on the district's water rates. Will not have any effect on the water rates. What does have effects on water rates are chromium. What has effect is our source of supply changes. This particular, looking at, when we're talking with our water rate consultant, who, by the way, will be presenting the verification of water rates at the November board meeting. So we've had some trying times over the last 6 months, and now we're on track to have our board, hear the verification from the water rate consultant. So, checking with Barbara Wells, this change has no effect. In fact, there's no effect on our budget as it stands today because we do not have positions that are filled. So we have budgeted but unfilled positions now that make up this amount of money. So there's no budget adjustment needed. We do have funding available with the elevation and changes and downshifting of the other positions, as mentioned. These have no effect. Here we go on this particular abbreviated version.
If we had a,
$46,324.59.
okay, can I speak? Okay. if we have the Chromium 6, like you were saying,
Where are we at, which chart are you on?
I'm looking at your,
The other chart.
Big one.
Okay, let me get
Okay.
that one back up there.
and
Hang on, let me see if I can grab it.
that one's illuminated out there.
Yeah, Chrome 6 is out there.
Okay, now which position would manage and do that stuff?
So the Chrome 6 would have a water treatment plant operator. So you're looking at, right, I don't know if you can see it, but up on the board right there. So it's underneath the engineering
Okay,
category,
okay. yeah,
water
I got it.
treatment plant operator.
Right.
And there's, if we have Chrome 6, we would need a treatment plant operator and likely an operations supervisor.
And the operations.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's above there.
okay.
So what could happen,
Plus the O&M.
well, that would be part of the treatment plant. The treatment plant operator would be, you know, that's all the internal workings of
Okay,
the treatment
okay.
plant. So you have a supervisor. What we have right now is the operations foreman is a grade 2, treatment 4. So he could act as an operations supervisor. He did water treatment, so in the water treatment plant. So we got him in with the idea that when we had Chromium 6 on us, that we wanted to hire somebody that had the certification to move into a water treatment facility.
But would he have that, like, double that person's workload? You know, from what he's currently doing?
He could do that. Our maintenance foreman is now becoming certified, so we're diversifying these levels so they can do more. So that's, you know, we're thinking ahead here with the Chrome 6 and other potential for treatment. We have, manganese in one of our wells. We're gonna be blending our system water, and so we're working on a blending facility, which our operations foreman and our maintenance foreman would have the capability to do that work, not adding any more workload. So, but we would need a water treatment plant operator, no question about that, if we have room.
So we'd have to then come up with whatever that salary is.
Right.
To fill that one.
And the salaries are all very common. We're not reinventing any deals on this one. We would look at other agencies and what they have for water treatment.
But it's just another chunk
Yeah,
that we'd have to come
of
up with.
course. You can thank the state of California for that.
Well, yeah, but we gotta fund it.
We have to,
That's- And then, I'm still looking at this, and it worked so well, the way we had it with paving. Which of these positions in your big chart is gonna be the next paver that's gonna be,
There could
funded?
be That's what we're going to be looking at, the government affairs and policy manager. And, the next pager in
No,
this position.
I didn't write that, I didn't say that correct. We had to pay their earmark, train him up, and if he proves his salt to us, he becomes the GM. That's what I'm looking for. Where's that next
The next
GM
one.
coming from?
Well, that
in
could,
this
that could
organization.
range, hopefully, my intent was to stay here for, 30 years. I made it, not quite 30, I wanted to stay about 27 years. So, 23 plus years. That was my intent, to make it that far. Anything can happen, so if we wanna forecast or crystal ball something, that's pretty hard to do. We don't have the water resources, water resources managers. That's hydrogeology, geology, that's our water resources. No intent to move up into a higher position. That's not in the crystal ball. It is very difficult to.
For our current. Yeah, well, that,
For the future,
Yeah.
so say for the future, you get a senior engineer, we're looking for a senior engineer. It's very difficult, if not Jeff Dinkins here, our employment. You can't go into an interview with a senior engineer that you're hiring that person for an engineering job and say, now, can you commit to me, you're gonna be the next
No,
general
you
manager?
can't do that.
You can't cross that
But
line.
my point is, it's worked well what we did, and what it is, to me, the obvious one is that position. It says Assistant General Manager. And
Right.
that's the next one that we're,
It's obvious Mary's wearing a few hats here too. I mean, as I see this, I think Mary was wearing more than one or two or three
Multiple.
hats. Yeah.
Also, let me state, that assistant general manager doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be the next general manager.
Yeah.
There are many assistant general managers in this industry that stay assistant general managers for their entire career. When the manager goes out, he will act as the general manager until the next one is recruited, you know, that kind of thing. But there are a lot of AGMs that don't move into the general manager. Now, there are ones that expressly said, yes, I want to be the next level. I want to go to that next level. It's very hard to predict that in this
Well,
situation.
because it just seems like that's the logical, we're gonna.
Can I address that just
Yeah.
briefly? Because I think that's a great point, and if I might, so when you're doing that, you're looking at people's likely tenure within their position. And so Peter, is a long-term position. He's not expecting to retire in 5 years or 10 years. He's got a lot of career ahead of him. Mary, on the other hand, may choose to retire. You have still a rough idea, 5 years or so?
Yes.
And so with that in mind, when Mary vacates the position, Peter will still be there, and then at that point, you can look at it would be a more appropriate time to look at succession planning in relation to that position, whereas now you have a need to ensure organizational continuity and institutional knowledge, and Mary fills that role as assistant general manager very well. But then when she leaves in the 5, whatever number of years it's going to be, Peter's still there. Then you're looking at succession planning, and it's more realistic. Who's going to commit to sticking around for 15 years? Who wants to be the backup quarterback for 15 years? They're going to be looking for going elsewhere, right? You have to have, the succession planning has to have some temporal relationship. So I think that's part of the thinking too.
Can I tag on to that? I think that if you do that, if you classify somebody that you just hired, or even an employee that's worked for you already, but less likely maybe with them, you hire a new person to come in and do that, and then what if they're not the correct person to do that? So you need to hire for your position that you're hiring for. You need to hire the person. You need to hire the integrity and the ability and the motivation and the desire to serve.
That fits the job description.
That,
Yes.
and it
Yes.
fits the job description as well, but you're hiring the person because a lot of people you can teach to do a job.
So what we're doing today is, since I'm out on January 2nd, Peter's in on January 2nd, we're looking to do some minor shifting, but adding 2 full-time positions, one of which is the office administrator, and the other is the government affairs associate. So those would be new positions. We will go out to recruit. We'll go out to advertise for a government affairs and policy manager, which is a downshift from the legal affairs. And then what then we'll do is we're moving Mary from administrative manager to assistant general manager. She's been flying on the wing with me this whole time and doing the job over the many years as that financial business manager that operates the district. So those are the only changes we're looking at here. The rest of the staffing, in the green boxes, those are all filled positions. We've given room for people to move up in the ranks, if they so choose, in any one of the green boxes. And we'll stay with the same structure, but we're really only looking at adding 2 full-time positions at the dollar value that we're talking about, the $176,000 difference up to the $225, as I remember, and then just shifting one position down, which is the legal affairs. Well, I'll go back to this one. Let me go back to the simple version. Simple version. There we go. So this is a new position. This is a new position. This is the downshifted position that Peter currently holds. Mary will become the assistant general manager, and then Peter in January becomes the new GM. So it's really just 2 positions we're looking for as support, and a slight and a minor shift from Mary up to the assistant GM, and the legal affairs shifting down.
know, laying it all out there, I like that.
Well, you know, it's, want to do this right, the smoothest transition, to have as much of a robust staff to support the professional level people that are working here. We need to modernize, and that's the best way to say it. We're working still in 2018, or actually earlier than that, we're working back in the same number of employees that we had back 10 years ago. And we don't have 10 years ago working anymore. So that's the recommendation of from the general manager, me, to the board, is to authorize the 2 additional positions, and to, let me get that org chart again. So we'll be authorizing, and approving the office administrator position and government affairs associate position, and the modification of the current legal affairs and policy manager to government affairs and policy manager, which is a lesser valued position, I should say, lesser cost position. And then moving Mary from the administrative manager to the assistant manager. So it's just in these boxes right here. Everything else remains the same. And that would be my recommendation to the board.
You don't wanna know what kind of it is, you don't like, you started in '96, right?
Yep.
Our then general manager, only other one we've had been here for 35 years. He was retirement age, and he said, you know what? This business is starting to get to me. There's more, I can't say the expletive deleted that he used, regulations coming down the pipe. They're gonna drive me nuts. I think it's time I hang it up.
Well, look at that evolution.
Yep.
He was a water company. Brad said many times, we thought we were a water company.
Yeah.
And then Chris comes on with the emphasis on water,
Yeah.
but all the legal stuff.
Exactly.
Now, we're gonna have a legal beagle as a manager with water almost in the shadows.
Back to my dumb question. When we ever get back, we're not, to selling water and fixing pipes.
Yeah.
Life was simple then, huh?
Yeah, that's part of it, but the bigger.
All the regulatory stuff and the legal stuff we get, and plus we get sniped at all the time by people who don't know what the hell they're talking about. And it's just,
Well, it is a
Jeff,
full, it is a full
Are
change.
you going to have public comments on this subject?
Eventually.
I'd like to make one, please.
Yeah, when we're done getting the description and everything, thank you.
when do we act on this next month?
Pardon me?
When do we act on this next month?
Now,
Right now,
today.
as depicted on this.
Pardon?
The public had,
It's available. We handed it out. Yeah,
okay.
it's all available, Harlan.
We laid that last message.
So you need a vote.
Yeah. No, there's,
Is there still discussion?
yeah, we can take public comment first, but objection.
It's pretty concise, pretty good.
I
If you can keep it within our bounds right now, I have to raise the rates to cover it. Our normal 5% will fit perfectly, and we're good.
This will not affect water rates. This change won't
Perfect.
affect any water rates. And in fact, it's adding 2 positions, and we could use more positions, but this is a gradual, we've got to move in to have support. Our current model is not working.
We're blessed with the manager and staff wearing multiple hats. That's what keeps us going.
Better leave it, yeah, thank you, Mike.
So that was one of the main, big, huge pushes that when we talked, was getting a little depth in the organization to support the people, support the general manager, and to support the assistant general manager, and the government affairs, the new government affairs person is to have, so that if they're gone and something comes up, or if they get sick, or if, in Chris's case, we had a lot of people that could hold down the fort, but not with every single aspect of what he does and knows. And if you have depth and you have room for people to not only move up, maybe a potential general manager in the future, but also to support the organization, to support the customers, to support water supply.
Well, you bring a good point, Lori, very good point. What we need to continue to do is provide the level of service And the more burden that the lesser staff has, the less level of service we can provide, just out of pure time and pure energy to do this. I mean, there's so much work to do now, reports and on the professional, the professional level. We've got reports from the feds and the states that we have to do, conservation, state controller report. We have an immense amount of work every single week that we have to do. IRS reports, I mean, it just goes beyond the comprehension of our customers. They don't see what really happens. And we want to maintain our level of service, and the more burden, the less people, that level of service is then impacted. Because we have to prioritize whether we keep the business operating and we meet our regulatory requirements, or we have to let some things fall off the map. I mean, public relations is a great thing, a great example. We want to do that. We want to get that outreach out. We just don't have the time. We just don't have the time to do it. We have to do IRS reports. We have to choose IRS report or newsletter. I mean, we don't do the IRS report, we get penalized. We don't do the state controller's report, we get payroll tax. I mean, those are real things, and we want to be able to do everything. We just have to have that support.
I'm equally concerned about the two muddy pits, Chrome 6 and Stigma.
Those are
We have
real.
no idea what that total dollar amount's gonna be. It's gonna be through the roof.
Yeah. Well, we got rid of one money pit. Well, we
Yes.
tried to, consumer operations and maintenance board. That was a money pit. And that was taking away, I'll give you a great example, that was taking away from our ability to fund things in this district, just because we needed, and now we're out of comb, and that's a really good thing. Although, as I mentioned, we have, $292,000 in the account that is sitting there still disputed with comb, so. Anyway, what our intent here tonight is to get two positions and have that minor modification so we can modernize and move forward with the new regime coming in.
A couple things I want to do, and I want to get to Mr. DeCroce in a second, but I would love to hear if you have anything to say from either Peter or Mary on this. Any thoughts flying around your head, because I'm certain that the board cares a lot what both you are thinking about modifications. Is this, you like this, not anything? What's going on?
Excuse me, from my standpoint, we worked as a team, the three of us has worked as a team coming up with this. And we feel like this is a very good start for us, and this would, at least in my own terms, it's a very good start. It would give us the needed assistance we need, and for right now, until Chrome 6 comes online, until those other things come on board, or we're gonna need some more assistance on the field side of things. But on the professional level of things, I think this is a very good start for us, and I think we're all in agreement, we all came to an agreement that these are the positions that we really need right now.
You feel comfortable with this, and you feel like, there's gonna be little arrows coming in at you, as you know, every day you get them. But you guys staffed up like this, you guys can carry on without Mr. Chris here. It's gonna be forward, none of the hiccups, we're not gonna.
Of course there's gonna be hiccups, we're definitely ready for
Halloween's
that.
coming up, so I'm gonna warn everybody.
So I can't speak on behalf of Peter, but I'm comfortable with
And I
this.
think Mary said it very well in several respects. And Chris mentioned the word modernizing. I think this actually represents a minimum of what other similarly situated agencies are operating under. This may sound like a criticism, but by all means it's not. It's a huge compliment that we are operating at sort of an 80s level staff, with the expectation, not just an expectation from the outside, but as an elected board and internally. It's not just an expectation that's on ID1, it's a desire that we all have, that you have as a board, that we have as professional staff, to serve a community. It's a desire that we have to provide levels of service at a 2020 plus level, right? But we want to do it, and we're expected to do it, but frankly, we're doing it at a staff that is below what other agencies are attempting to do the same things with. You know, if it was a wish list, it would be something probably different. I think what is being presented to you by the general manager is something that is, again, to try to bring us up to a base level in terms of modernization, to try to respond to, and Chris said it well, with the level of staff we have, think about it this way, we have a certain level of staff, but a new range of responsibilities that come from the regulatory side of things, whether it's Sigma, water quality, a whole host of things that, you know, the ADU laws, coming down from the Sacramento, from the legislature. It's a brave new world. There are a lot of different things that public agencies, and in particular water agencies, are being requested, required, expected to do. And so, in the whole social media and public interface and interaction, that too is something that's top of mind for us as staff. We know it's top of mind for you as constituents elected in the community. We want to have that profile in the community. We want to be engaged at different and modern levels, but it's very challenging to do right now. And this is not promoting our hardship, but it's a reality of some of the things that we are pleased to do, and we wake up excited to do every day at a certain staffing level. I really do think that we could benefit from broadening the staff level.
Yeah, because, you know, when we do comparison to other, like Carpenter, they don't have the wells that we have. They don't have the river water that we use. You know what I mean? And they're not as complex as us.
Well, actually, they do. They have a lot of wells. They deal with they deal with seawater intrusion. They have a part of their profile. They have consumer water, state water, and well water.
Right.
What they don't have is river water, which we have. That's a whole.
No, that's a whole legal issue.
But they also have a Pacific Ocean.
Yeah, and they have.
You know,
they have wells. They have state. They have consumer water. They're now going after desal water. Well, we have one additional burden, one additional protection, and that's our river water. And that water, that's so valuable. And we can't let that go. We have to protect those water rights in that river because they mean more than the Kachuma project water that we get. They're golden, and we don't ever want to lose that for our customers.
Okay, but you two guys, I'm looking at you two guys. You give me the thumbs up, and you're good to go.
Additional nuance with carpentry as an example. Chris talks about just the regulatory side of things and the water rights side of things, contracting, permitting, advocacy at the federal and state levels. Pick any number one of the South Coast agencies. They are represented by CCRB. They are represented by COMB. They have other agencies, JPAs doing their bidding for them and carrying a lot of that load. And they're still at 20, right? And so they're above us. But they have multiple agencies doing their bidding and work for them at the advocacy and other levels. And so we're doing it here.
Yeah, I think that, and I'll just say it, you guys have just done such a great job, and I'm looking at you three into this. Chris's premature retirement is basically taking a spotlight and focus it down on this place that we probably should have been looking at before, and I say it because you guys have done such a great job, and you've been wearing many hats that now I think this is just the first step. As Peter writes, it's not a wish list. We could add a lot more here, but we have to at least do this to even, maintain our balance at all. So I don't,
Well,
Well, thank goodness we have Peter, because if we had to go out and recruit a general manager,
Yeah, it's difficult.
And my hat goes off to Chris for seeing the foresight to bring him in. I mean, that was golden when you did that.
What year, do you remember, did Rusty Harrington leave ID1?
16,
No kidding, that's 3 years.
November 16.
Okay.
He was here 6 months.
Yeah,
I mean, he was a great guy.
he's a good guy.
But
Super
who's,
good.
who's gonna pass up an offer of a lot more? And, you know.
Yes, yes. Anyway, so, I want to give the public a chance to speak if you would like. Mr. Cacochi, this is
No,
for another
it's not
item.
today.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Right.
Thank you.
This is a very personal set of comments, a little different from what you're used to, and something I've never done before in this kind of environment. So I hope you will indulge me. I spent 16 years as a national manager with the Toyota Corporation in the technology area, typical high-pressure, stressful job. During those 16 years, I had 2 heart attacks. I retired 21 years ago, not related to any health issues, but it was just my normal retirement time. During those 21 years, I have had no cardiac incidents. None. Good. So now my comments, Chris, are directed directly to you. Although I know we have significant differences, I'm a Catholic. There's significant differences in the use of water and where Steelhead is concerned. Nonetheless, I wish you well and good health in retirement, because I can relate. I wish you complete absence of cardiac incidents in retirement. Once, Dr. Alton, you probably all know Bill Alton, my cardiologist now retired, once said to me, "Nick, get the hell out of my office, you're wasting my time." I wish you the same. So I wish you a cardiologist who will kick you out of his office, and best wishes for good heart health in retirement. And thank you, trustees, for indulging me with this personal pitch.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate that. Appreciate that.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I just have one
Please.
comment. I don't know if this is Chris's last meeting, but I'd like to reflect what Rick said, that I hope he enjoys good health and that he hasn't had a retirement. The one thing, I just had one question on the 2 new positions in the pink boxes. Are those both gonna be lawyers? And if they are, does that mean that maybe you'll use outside lawyers less than you had after the reorganization?
We'll let you know in the future.
Okay.
I don't have a crystal ball that rolled off the desk
Okay,
a couple years ago.
I think maybe
I'm
it's
not
all
gonna
on
get
board
it.
to try to bring down the cost of outside lawyers, and I don't know if that works or not.
No, I appreciate what you're saying, we just don't know right now. Thank you, though, for asking. All right. What else do we have? Do we want,
Could I assist you in a motion? Because
Please,
it's a
please.
complicated one, I want to be
I
clear.
appreciate that.
So if I might, what I would suggest as a motion is that the board approve the following, with the salaries based on the current 12-step scale that the district has. The creation of a position of office manager with a bottom step of $65,125 and a top step of $85,449. A position, a newly titled position of government affairs and policy manager with a bottom step of $126,288.24 and a top step of $165,701.16. The creation of a new position of government affairs and policy associate with a bottom step of $80,159 and a top step of $105,176, and change the salary scale for the assistant general manager to $135,568 to $184,779, and finally authorize the general manager to create job descriptions for those positions.
Well, you said that very well, better than I
Only
ever.
one little technical item.
Yes.
Whatever you said, office manager,
Correct.
office administrator.
I'm sorry, with that correction.
That was the motion.
That was a Mizzou one.
Did you move it?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed. Carries 5-0.
Good work, guys. You bet, you bet. Whatever.
These two gentlemen both named Bacardi. All right.
And I'd like to thank Nick for those very nice,
Yeah, that was very cool.
appropriate.
It was nice.
Get the hell out of Valley. I like that.
Yeah, my cardiologist, non-retired cardiologist, he's younger than I am, he said, here's your choices. You go part-time indefinitely or you're done. So that resonated. I looked at my wife and I said, he's very serious about this. So I said, yes, you want to live a high-quality life for many years and take my advice, take my direction. So I will.
That's why he gets the big bucks.
Good thing. One is enough. One big one was enough. A lot of plumbing. And I'm gonna take that big recommendation. So, thank you, Nick.
So good.
Excuse myself, thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Wreck the place.
You can make it heads.
Take good care. All right, let's move on to item 11B, operations and maintenance.
Okay, just very quickly, we're winding down on the crew building and the treatment building for our well back on actually backyard here, actually our backyard. So final design is just about done. The architect is working on electrical plans and structural, but those should be done by the end of the week. And we're planning to go to bid here the first week of November. So this will give our crew, get them out of the trailer, 8 guys out of the trailer. And get them in the crew quarters. It also gives us an electrical room, treatment room, storage for our very expensive equipment. And this was the plan, and we also have a longer term plan, but for right now, this is phase 1.
That's a stupid question, but I'm looking at which one floor. Okay. I'm looking at the bathrooms. We have a men's restroom and shower, but we don't have a woman's restroom and shower.
That,
We need to be a unisex for, you see what I'm getting at?
we can switch it around and make the unisex the main, and have
Yeah.
the men's the other one. So,
Right, or just both unisex, just have a lock on the door.
yeah, it's-
That's why I'm just thinking.
Simple, simple. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you, Brad. I'll make sure and perfect.
Do you need us to do anything with this,
Sir,
or?
we're moving forward.
Okay, fantastic.
Already-
Let's
That
go
was just another.
to item 12, the Chuma project.
I'm just gonna jump to one of the biggest and most important items is, in your board packet, the board, State Water Resources Control Board approved the long waited water rights order that was issued on September 17th. Pedro can probably hit some of the highlights of it, and we talked a little bit about the draft order and what it means. A couple of big items on that draft order is, of course, we looked at 3C as the regime for downstream releases of water for fish, not downstream water rights water for fish, downstream releases of consumer project water.
That's the one that just started the other day?
Yes, they are. They have started.
Yeah, last
There's more
Tuesday,
water, there's more water going down.
Last Tuesday,
than there have been in the
a
past.
flyby from my Air Force said, when do we start making these?
Yeah, there's more water going downstream.
So I called Kevin, he didn't even know about
No, it's fish, it's.
Huh.
increasing.
Okay, now, the old question, whose water is it?
It's project water.
But whose water is it?
It's,
It's not anyone's water.
we are a contractor with the Bureau of Reclamation for water through the county. So the project water is made up of 5 contractors. Santa Barbara,
Right.
Montecito,
So
Carp,
who are those 5 lost water?
and ID1. So that water going downstream is ID1's project water.
Nice, how come they chose us only?
What?
How come they chose us only? What about the South Coast people?
Oh, no, they're
Picking up some of that gas?
They are.
Okay, so it's everybody's
It's
water.
everybody's water.
And
Except
who's gonna calculate that?
it's,
Not cold.
Bureau of Reclamation.
Who's measuring it?
Bureau of
I
Reclamation.
wanna look over the guy's shoulder, whoever's measuring it.
There are flow meters at dam and the outlet works. So those are very, they're calibrated flow meters, so they're watched by not only the parent district, us, and the Bureau of Reclamation makes those releases.
How come the parent didn't know about it?
Well,
Good question.
I mean, I wanna give Kevin this list.
that's a great question.
Within our report plan, this list is
Well,
full.
the Bureau of Reclamation has the authority to make those releases because they are project.
I know, it's their place, I know.
It's their,
But this list is so full of errors, it's ridiculous.
there's a lot on this order that take place now, 90 days from now. There's so much involved in this, but the 2 big ones are water, the downstream, the releases for fish, and passage around the dams for fish. Those
Are we allowed to make any comments on this, because it's wrong?
Well, it's over. This is the state board released this already.
I know, but it's wrong, it's just flat wrong. It was not finished in 56, it was finished in 52. It says here, Lake Cochise in Santa Barbara County, for the protection of fish, possibly reducing the water supply for communities that rely. I wrote, you think? Of course it's reducing,
Yes, it is.
every gallon of it. Southern California steelhead, no. They're steelhead, but Southern California wasn't around when steelhead were flowing out there in the river 100,000 years ago. Where the hell that name come from? It's like we've been talking for years. Southern California steelhead / trout, because they didn't know what the hell the fish was.
So the
Historical data, historical role of state water boards, built in 56. No, it's built in 58, the first time. It was run for approximately 150,000 people. Whoops. There's about $250,000 now in Iowa. How'd that happen? And someone's in here, they wrong, they went to Montecito. Again, reclamation in 58, water rights permits in 58. Are those numbers correct?
Well, I'm sure, Harlan,
Third paragraph down.
you probably picked up, you probably picked up the punctuation error too on this.
Which one?
The one that is the paren, and.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
quotation. So when you say fact sheet, yeah, there are some not quite so close facts on here, but this was a state board release that we had nothing to do.
You know what it means? It means back to the square one. I wrote here in a lot of, meaning the live stream agreement when there was no dam. And we flew the river monthly to check for live stream. I guess we gotta tear it down like Brian Trotwine said. Tear the dam down and let the river go back to what it was. It's
You
crazy.
don't want that.
I know,
You
I
don't want
know.
that.
That makes more sense than anything.
I'm gonna have Peter do just a bullet point summary of some of the state board activities. You wanna do that?
I'm happy to.
No? Shake your head
No, I'm happy
no? Just some bullet points.
Sure, I mean, we could go on for hours really about the order. It's about a 150-page order. It was adopted by the state board on the 17th of September after literally a 20-year process and iterations of environmental review and multiple EIRs and supplemental EIRs and final EIR and massive administrative record. I think the state board was sort of between a proverbial rock and a hard place. I mean, we have this pending Section 7 reconsultation process happening under the federal ESA, but we have this almost antiquated proceeding before the state board for the water rights order for the permits pursuant to which reclamation operates Bradbury Dam and diverts and stores water in the reservoir. for the consumer member units, and so the board bit the bullet, made a decision to issue an order. Interestingly enough, in the environmental review, what they referred to as alternative 3C, that was identified as the environmentally superior alternative. And 3C essentially is operation of the project under the terms of the now existing 2000 biological opinion issued by the National Marine Fisheries Service. At some point in time, Cal Trout proposed what's now termed as alternative 5C. They called it 3A2, 5C, call it what you will, but what it was and what it is, and what it is as adopted by the board, is it's 3C, so the 2000 biop during normal and below normal years, hydrologically, but when the system experiences above or what they term wet years, 5C provides for additional releases for outmigration of some lines so they can live their life cycle in the ocean, and then some flows for immigration to spawn and rear and things like that. And so the board adopted 5C, alternative 5C, with these higher flows in wet and above normal years. Those year types are defined by the State Water Resources Control Board in the order. An above normal year is when inflow to the reservoir is above 33,707 acre feet, but below 117,842 acre feet. And a wet year is when flows are above 100, inflows to the reservoir are above 117,842 acre feet. So it was an interesting proceeding, and I won't spend a lot of time on this, but it's worth noting. It was interesting, I think, because as part of the incredible set of technical, legal, policy comments that were submitted to the state board by all parties interested, from Cal Trout to EDC to Reclamation, Fish and Game, National Marine Fisheries Service, all the South Coast agencies, the parent district ID1, we briefed you on all of this. One thing that the ID1 really zoomed in on and said, look, your own environmental document says that 3C is the environmentally superior alternative. We support that. However, if you're inclined, for reasons we believe are incorrect, to go with 5C, we want to propose a technical alternative such that your trigger for the higher flows isn't a mere 33,700 acre feet of inflow to the reservoir. Stetson engineers came up with a modeling proposal to say, if you trigger the higher flows at 33,007, you could actually have a false start for a wet year. You could have an initial inflow, a first big flush, with that type of trigger. It would trigger higher releases, but you could end up not having a wet year. And so we proposed an alternative inflow trigger of 77,000 acre feet. We said that will provide the same benefit to the fishery in terms of higher flows in a non-false start wetter year. 77,000 is a higher trigger than this 33,000 acre feet, but it conserves a lot more water in the reservoir for potential multiple dry years following a wet year. So it was very well laid out, and two of the members of the state board bit on this pretty hard. It ended up being a 4-1 decision, but there was alternative motions being made at the board level, where two of the board members made and seconded a motion, which ultimately didn't carry, to adopt this alternative inflow trigger that ID1 proposed among all of these comments. And so it was very encouraging to see, ultimately discouraging, because that motion did not carry, and they ultimately adopted 5C with the inflow trigger of 33,707. But it was interesting to see the state board grapple with the balance that state law requires under Article 10, Section 2 of the California Constitution, under state statutory law, under the public trust doctrine, everything else. It requires a balancing of interests. And it was good to see all of the board members, but two in particular, really looking for a more practical balance between water conservation and protection of the fishery Like I said, the motion didn't carry, and so what we have is 5C with the current inflow. Another notable part about the decision is that the state board recognizes that from an environmental impact standpoint, the water supply impacts of alternative 5C are significant and unavoidable. This is a CEQA parlance. Significant and unavoidable and unmitigable impact on water supplies. But what then that type of finding requires under CEQA is a statement of overriding considerations. And the state board said, look, we think that the water supply impacts attendant to 5C can be mitigated, and this is where it just sort of goes off the rails in terms of reasoning, and it's not to be pejorative, but as a practical matter, the state board said, look, these water supply impacts to the Kachula member units can be offset by, you just conserve more. You know, and look where we are with conservation and, you know, sales impacts and things like conserve more, use more groundwater. Well, we come in and say, we're gonna use more groundwater. Have you heard of Sigma? You know, that thing that the other side of the state adopted and is enforcing and implementing? Use more groundwater. Use more state water project supplies. But we know what's going on in the Delta, and, you know, we can go to the CCWA meetings, and those aren't becoming more plentiful or less expensive. They're becoming more constrained, less reliable, and more exponentially more expensive. And finally, here's the coup de grace, rely on the City of Santa Barbara's desal facility. And we're like, hello, we're over here with the, you know, the desal facility belongs to the City of Santa Barbara alone. It can't be used to offset or mitigate water supply impacts that are hoisted upon ID1 by all means, but Goleta, Montecito, although there's an arrangement being made, or others on the south coast, Carpinteria. So it was a real stretch, but the state board nevertheless found that the water supply impacts in part can be mitigated by relying on these other sources and just conserving our way out of this predicament. But in the statement of overriding considerations, the state board said, look, there's a significant unavoidable impact on water supplies, but you can mitigate them, but above all, the benefits that are being provided to the fishery from the additional flows in wet and above normal years offset or override the water supply impacts that are being imposed on the water users of Kachula member units. And so that is what it is. The fallout, which is very immediate right now, we're already having phone calls and teleconferences with the South Coast agencies and with Reclamation. There are a number of things in order that require Reclamation to prepare plans, to prepare studies for potential passage, a feasibility of passage around Bradbury Dam, forest lines, but all sorts of other studies and reports to be prepared by Reclamation. Reclamation, of course, what do? They turn to the Kachula member units. Of course. You do. You know, this is your interest at stake. What are you going to do to help us make this happen? That process is already, it's going to be arduous, it's going to be delicate. We're going to have to find ways that make sense for the downstream interest to be involved, but we're 10.31% of the Kachula project supplies. We frankly have the best expertise on the river, but we can't subsidize the South Coast. We've had a lot of complications trying to cost share with them with our own experts and expertise. So these are issues we're going to have to start to step through, walk through, collaborate and coordinate with South Coast and with Reclamation. So it's, but we have an order. What's interesting about the order as well is we now have a state-based adopted order on a huge record that is going to be juxtaposed ultimately against the biological opinion that will be issued by the National Marine Fisheries Service. And I'm not a betting person, but I would speculate to say that the release regime we would see in a BIOP issued by the National Marine Fisheries Service is going to be more onerous than 5C. And so that's where that interface between state and federal based standards and laws and what's right and what's the balance is going to be interesting. Really, really, and I say interesting as an anecdote for something probably different.
And that's our fear leadership.
And that's one of the reasons why we've planned for years
to have 20% less water supply from the FEMA project.
That's smart.
Why we have done what we've done for redundancy in the groundwater basin. We've got our state licenses from, for our river wells, and we looked at, and we committed to the reacquisition of the suspended water, the state water project water that's 12,214 acre feet, our proportionate share of that. So that's why we look, knowing 20% or more is going to be reduced from the consumer project.
We're signed up for 500 feet of that.
Good. Correct me if I'm wrong, because aren't the members of the state water board appointed by the governor?
Yes.
Oh my. And,
Exactly.
it's just that this underlying message of fish before people is getting a little old, and it's just, I guess my question is this: who are the people that are appointed to this board? Are they scientists? Are they heads of industry? Give me a cross section. Who are these people?
Well, by state law, there's a diversity that's embedded into the membership of the state board. So there has to be, I'm gonna float this, there's an engineer, a member of the public, an attorney, Nick help me, engineer, member of the public, attorney,
Butcher,
member of Large or something, but anyway,
Probably a farmer.
it might be an urban.
Agriculture has to be there.
I apologize for not being able to
Okay.
rattle this off, but
Okay.
the membership does include an engineer right now, one of the new appointees, a Harvard grad, lawyer. We have, the at-large person, does have a sort of a development agricultural background. This is one of the board members who was advocating for a more practical trigger. So it's the concept is to have a diversified set of perspectives on the state board by design, and the statute set it that way.
Okay, thank you.
One thing I'd like to add is that today, the Bureau of Reclamation did file a request for reconsideration to the state board, and on two grounds. One, the Reclamation, they made this very clear at the hearing in their submittal and in oral argument that, for their presentation, they don't have congressional authority to conduct a study for feasibility, a passage feasibility around the dam. They say they need congressional authority to conduct that type of study or to fund it. And on the second ground, they requested reconsideration was in the last iteration of the state board order that came out and that was adopted, really in one of the very last minute drafts, the state board inserted in multiple places that when the Bureau is undertaking these various studies and reports that are ordered, they have to take into consideration the 2016 draft Jeopardy biological opinion that was issued by the National Marine Fisheries Service. And so Reclamation is saying, well, hold on a minute, that consultation's been terminated. That was a draft document. It's in a circular file. It was never peer reviewed, and that's really an overstep to require us to take into consideration a document that has really no regulatory value or effect. There's a whole new consultation underway. So that was filed today by Reclamation, and to my knowledge, no other parties have filed or intend to file a request for reconsideration. It should be noted too that Caltrap DEC were of course at the hearing, and as the sort of authors of the original Alternative 382, which became 5C, they were very supportive of 5C, believing that it does provide additional protections for steelhead, and so I wouldn't see the environmental constituency challenging 5C. So it looks like an order that we're gonna live with.
Excellent, thank you.
It was kind of good. I started, my first hearing was 1999 with the place and purpose of use.
There you go.
And before I retired, the actual order was issued. So 1999, 2003 hearings and 2012 hearings. So, and I guess the last hearing and the most important one, I couldn't go. Peter went instead. Didn't make it, but all good. There's a lot to that order, and it's complicated, and who is going to implement that? You know, Reclamation doesn't do well on implementing much of the order, technical information that's required under Water Rights Order 94-5 that was issued to the Bureau of Reclamation. The water users, the Kachuma member units did almost everything in that order. So I'm foreseeing that that's still gonna be the case. Hoping that Reclamation does more, but I'm afraid it's gonna land on the backs of the contractors. So, which is us, we're one of them.
I got a question for you, Chris. Is there anything left of the old Kachuma Project Authority? Is it now gone?
That's gone.
That's just wiped off.
That's gone. Yeah,
That's a shame, because that was prior to code, and it should still be there.
Yeah, that's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, another thing, Peter knows I'm not real fond of stigma, especially because our illustrious governor has decided that we don't need people farming out there anymore. We're gonna idolize 1 million acres of farmland to have room for solar panels and wind machines. Okay, keep it up, Governor. You bought all your produce from Chile or Mexico or Taiwan or wherever with zero regulations as far as any kind of health, stay alive and eat this stuff.
So Sigma.
I mean, come on, we gotta get real and have some more help for the farmers. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Sigma's at a little bit later, Harlan. I just wanna do a quick report on Kachuma on the 2020 contract. So, we're gonna shift gears.
I thought we were on 3 already. I thought we were good.
January wasn't done in 2 months.
But we just missed the 2020. There's nothing
Okay.
more to report except there's nothing to be done, which is a bad thing. The contract expires on September 30th, 2020, or 20, no, it expires 2020, sorry. Expires, that was one of the things I wanted to fulfill, was get through, I went through the first contract negotiations, I wanted to do the second one. But, so it expires in September 2020, and there's no movement by the county at this point, because they are the contracting agency with the Bureau of Reclamation, with the subcontractors. The Bureau has not issued a basis of negotiation. It's held up, and now the Bureau of Reclamation has changed the jurisdictional boundaries. We are no longer under the Mid-Pacific region. We are now in the lower Colorado Basin. So we're trying to figure out, we're trying to confirm with some confidence that we're not gonna fall under a different regime of Bureau of Reclamation management. Because we are in the lower Colorado, we've always been in the Mid-Pacific, and now that's shifted.
So Michael Jackson isn't our guy anymore?
Well, we hope Reclamation keeps Michael as our guy and Ernest Conan, who is the regional director. We're not sure. We don't have any written confirmation, but we do have the demarcation lines, and so that could flip us around a little.
So where's Peter gonna have to drive to besides Fresno for meeting?
Hoover Dam.
Chris, what month is the Water Users Conference, Bureau's Water?
January.
Okay, so that's gonna be interesting.
Yes.
You're not gonna be retired, you're gonna go to that, aren't you?
I'm still a chairman.
Good.
So,
Okay, good.
that was one of the things we have on the agenda for the RD, the regional director, to talk about, is this new set of
Yeah, I was gonna
demarcation
say, that's gonna be an
lines.
interesting,
So,
conference.
Yes, it will be very.
Right.
Okay, that's it on,
What's that old thing, Jeff?
12A.
The guy said, cheer up, things could be worse. So I cheered up, and sure the hell, they got worse.
So we're gonna go to B, is the State Water Project, Central Coast Water Authority. 2 items we're talking about is the Department of Water Resources, the Delta Conveyance Project, and consider participation with CCWA in that Delta Conveyance Project. In your board pack, we've already seen, the board has already seen it, there was a presentation by Ray Stokes. I provided that information again, from a memorandum from Ray Stokes on August 1st. I've looked at, and then also in your board package, there is a letter from Nick, from UWatch. I've looked through the Delta Conveyance Project. I talked with Ray at length. I have some recommendations for the board, but overall, here's my 4 concerns. One, the cost. We have committed to the reacquisition of the suspended water of 500 acre feet. We needed that is something we don't have to build a pipe for or a conveyance project for. So we've committed to that funding of that, including the most recent environmental, our participating share of $300,000 for the environmental work. That's one thing, and the cost of the Delta Conveyance project, we don't know what the numbers are. There's the analysis that Ray provided that it's $240 an acre foot. That's a number based on uncertainty, and that's my second reason is it's still uncertain. The state water contractors are still negotiating and have not come to the terms and conditions of this arrangement. So we don't have the certainty of, number one, what it's going to be, the cost, and which brings, again, another portion of my reasons, is the City of Solvang, who we contract for City of Solvang for 75% of the water, right? So we have 2,000 acre feet of our contract water. We contract with the city for 1,500 acre feet, 75%. City of Solvang recently opted out. They do not want to participate, which puts the burden on ID1 for that contract water. That's another cost to us. Finally, other agencies in CCWA are opting out. City of Santa Barbara and Carpinteria opted out. Now, based on that, the more agencies that opt out, prices go up.
Yeah.
So we've got uncertainty, cost, and participation. And you know, I think back to the peripheral canal years ago, that was discussed, and
1982.
yeah, way back then, and that was a controversial issue. This is only going to lead to litigation and land right problems, and it just has written all over.
As the earmarks of something nasty.
You know, to me, it's like the bullet train to nowhere. You know, the bullet train from Fresno to Madera. It's like, no, 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 no. Why are you spending $68 billion? Why are we going to spend $14 billion uncertain dollars on this project, on this particular project? For a reliability factor, in my mind, we're better to spend that money and put wells in this district rather than commit to that kind of funding. So my recommendation to the board, based on a number of viewpoints, I've looked at this, I've analyzed it, I've talked to Ray Stokes, I just can't get behind or recommend this board participating in the Delta Conveyance project, or in other words, opt out. That's my recommendation.
Well, I've got many different questions. Here's the hard part for me. We're basing assumptions on something that's not for real yet. How do you get almost $168,000 annual O&M on something that the construction of it, everything, it's not there. It's like grabbing at steam.
Not only that, you can bet that 14 billion will be more like 28 billion.
40 billion.
Yeah. But even Christians go, they talk about you can make a deal with another contractor. Say so-and-so opts out, you find out to make a deal with. That to me, I mean, Peter, maybe you can speak legally, that just sounds like kind of quicksand. I mean, isn't that a lot of liability? Let's say, I mean, theoretically, let's say the board says, oh yeah, we want a little piece of this. We would have to find another contractor to partner with, or, right? And is it, I mean, that's a huge liability.
It would be similar to our arrangement we have with the city of Solvang. We have, you know, we as the contractor have to assure that in the event of any default by the city of Solvang, ID1 picks up that 75% cost. So if you make an arrangement with another agency and it's our share that we're looking to partner, some agency has to be the guarantor. And I just like, you know, we have a set aside reserve in the event Solvang defaults. We have 1 year of the state water payment.
Yes.
Set aside.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
to do that, the financial liability is just too much for this district to hold. And that's my, experience and position, and I just can't recommend an opt-in. And I have to recommend an opt-out.
So theoretically, what if, because I was looking at 350 million just for planning with nothing happening,
Yes.
350 million.
And
What
planning
if-
what? That's
What if 50%, theoretically, 50% of the proposed participants drop out? That share becomes very expensive just to plan it.
Right, it does.
It's like putting your foot on something that's moving.
Well, I mean, worse. That's it. I've looked at the numbers, Jeff, and board, and I can't justify it. Particularly, we have obligations that may be coming down the pipe, which is Chrome 6. If that comes back, and if the state,
Oh, yeah.
DPW says we're back down to 10 parts per billion or 5 parts per billion, then we have to do, we have wells that are hovering at 13 parts per billion. If we go to 10,
Right.
we
Right.
can't operate those wells, so we have to do something with capital investment, not this capital investment, but our capital investment to maintain our water production from our water basin.
How realistic, Chris, and I have the utmost respect for Ray Stokes, but I think he mentioned a possible drop from 62 to 48, something like that. Reliability, how real is that? I mean, is that pie in the sky, or would we be looking at that?
Jeff, the state of California, look at our community here, look at the Kachina project. There's a balancing act, working right now, where the public trust resources are now balancing with the water supply. That's happening in the Delta. So the Delta water, just like the Kachina water, we have to plan for less water for consumption and more water to balance. And that's why we said 20% less, we gotta look at our groundwater basin, we gotta keep our water rights in there. Same thing with the Delta. It's not that all water users are not the full cause of the Delta issue.
That's right.
There's other,
There's myriad of
private
issues
pumpers,
there.
there's, wastewater plants up there, the reclamation for the wastewater, facilities. There's a whole number of things that are occurring in the Delta and in the foothills of the Sierra and in the Sierra itself. Look at our weather patterns. Geologically, geologic time, we look at the ice ages and the warming ages, those take a long time. Yeah, humans have an influence. We absolutely do. But those are all changes that we have to keep our eye on that are affecting all this. And the reliability is going to go down no matter what. That's my opinion.
But that radically.
We had 77%. When we first signed up for the state water project, it was 77% long-term reliability and deliveries. And we're ratcheting down because of the balancing act that's going on. And it's only gonna go down. So as the availability of water goes down, the cost always goes up. And because you've got an investment of the plumbing, but you've also got the movement of the water and the molecules themselves, so.
To me, the Twin Tunnels project made more sense and would, if that would not have got canned, I think something substantial, I think people need to start investing in another conveyance system. I mean, that's not working. One earthquake, that's a big deal. And those levees break and seawater intrusion, all these things, something, in my opinion, needs to be done. It needs to be concrete. If you can invest in something, I wanna know what it is, everything.
Yes.
I don't mind the investment, but
Well, right, I agree. Looking at long-term reliability,
Yeah.
we've gotta do that.
we gotta do
But
something.
I think what's happening, and this happened right now, it's happening with the power grid, right? PG&E and FCE. We've got the public safety power shutdown.
Whatever.
Okay, I just experienced this when I went up north, in Northern California, up to the Water Users Committee, 3 days of power outages, okay, so, and people were panicked over this, and what it meant was, and I met with Peter, and Peter and I went to OEM and had a meeting at the Office of Emergency Management here in Santa Barbara, and my big question was, okay, if you're asking us to shut down, you're gonna have a shutdown of power, so you're telling us to be self-reliant. So to be and this is the same thing with the Delta, we have to be self-reliant, and we have it here. We're very fortunate to have 4 sources of water supply, and only 4% of the Delta water that we get, we only get 4% of the Delta water here into our system, so.
Plus 2 very large generators.
Yes. So you know, the state's saying, we hear it at this PSPS thing, state's saying, you're gonna have power shutdowns, you better be self-reliant. Same thing with the water supply. You better be self-reliant, and going, you know, single tunnel, twin tunnel, peripheral canal, whatever it is not self-reliant. So I looked at factors from subjective factors to numbers, and I cannot recommend moving forward as a participant in this district.
Yeah.
We may have a little trouble finding the money to pay for it, but I think it's really good if you want that 500 feet of the 12,000.
That's a whole different,
Yeah.
that's already committed
Yeah.
water, so.
I know, but we haven't got the okay yet with
County.
the 5 Jekyll and Jekyll down there.
Yeah. So that's from, you know, from management level looking at this thing. I know there's a letter, from, Nick in here from UWatch.
You gotta tell me how you want.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Nick wanted to talk about
Yes.
this.
Please.
Chris, you gotta tell me how you want me to vote
Chris,
on the 24th.
you have just made my job too easy. Because I'm here to recommend that you opt out of the Delta Conveyance Project for reasons. It's too expensive. It's just damn too expensive. Your share of the cost, I didn't want, would be somewhere between 7 million and 11 million under the current 14 billion estimate. The reason the range is so wide is that there's not even a project description yet, so we don't know what we're talking about. But you're up to maybe 7 to 11 million dollars. Most importantly, that you need to know about, there are far less costly alternatives for supplying water through the Delta to us. And as importantly, far less expensive ways of mitigating for sea level rise, for earthquake damage, and for water quality. The reliability estimates that DWR is promulgating are very questionable. But it's almost a given with the variation that we have in California in water years. How can it not be varied? The reliability estimates are based on major increases in surface storage, 3, 4 more dams, in order to maybe increase reliability. Surface storage that is probably not affordable, multi-billions of dollars more, and not appropriate as a 21st century solution. Third, a tunnel, no matter what size, will aggravate habitat in the Delta and fish conditions in the Delta. Taking more water out of the Delta can never help habitat or fisheries. And new tunnel intakes at the north end of the Delta will deprive the Delta of the good water quality that it puts in there now. Additionally, the loss of significant freshwater flows through the Delta will degrade the healthy Delta farming economies and the recreation economy in the Delta. Most of these adverse impacts will be felt by any community, including us. I'm a resident of Salt, including us, who are geographically south of the Delta. You'll feel the effects. And lastly, our recommendation is partly due to the unreliability of DWR's past reliability estimates. We all know that history. This presentation leaves a lot of detail, has a lot of detail behind a 3-minute presentation. So I would be happy to spend more time with you to go over alternatives to a tunnel and a whole portfolio of packages
that I promoted when I was the leader of an environmental water caucus, not We Watch, but that's a different organization. I'd be happy if you want to take the time to answer maybe some of your questions related to the twin tunnels versus a single tunnel question.
Thank you.
So there's my point. That means that, well, on the, I guess one more thing, if I probably don't pass my 3 minutes. We Watch has no recommendations yet on the suspended table A allocation. We have merely presented some facts to the Solvang City Council that are pretty questionable. Not facts that are questionable, but they make the proposition questionable. And you need to see those facts before you make a determination on what I call the STAR, suspended table A reacquisition. I made that clear.
Thank you, Nick.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
So the board, would give Harlan as the CCWA representative, direction to vote, opt out, opt in, or opt out. So
That's a week from today.
that's coming up, next week.
So do you wanna?
That would be.
You wanna opt out?
Vote? Yeah, well, yeah, I think so, just to be formally motion,
If
yeah.
that's what we decide, that's gotta be my vote as CCWA.
Okay, so do you want a motion and then we?
It would be good to have a motion that, the board would, direct Harlan to, direct Harlan to opt out
Delta Conveyance.
at the Delta Conveyance project as a participant with CCWA.
So moved.
Not Harlan, 81.
They would.
Opt out, yeah.
So moved.
But do we wanna give Harlan a little more leeway in case something happens between now and then? I doubt if anything will, but if something changes, he gets some better information, he's not locked in till the very end. You see what I'm getting at?
I
They
think.
want a decision.
I don't know,
The clock is moving on that, they're gonna,
CCW wants that decision.
October 20-something,
Yeah.
so.
Cause I
Next Thursday.
understand when it comes to that.
It looks like that's the climate, just looking down that CWA board, it looks like that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah, the motion would be that the board authorize Harlan to cast a vote to opt out at the CCWA board meeting.
That's so moved by Brendan.
Waiting for a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
That's a girl.
Aye.
There's still a snowball chance in hell if we decide later on we wanna get back in somehow, if we can partner up with some other state contractor. We don't have to spend input out.
Yes.
Harlan,
There is that,
and I raise, in opting out, you would also be opting out of the $350 million planning costs.
oh, yeah, that's a given, that's what we're talking about.
Make sure that you include that.
Don't worry about that.
Okay.
Okay, great, let's keep moving.
And these numbers here are based on the 12,214 instead of Ray working on something else out for us, and new well, and whatever.
Okay, item C, Sigma, Brad, are you reporting on that? or-
We've got a meeting next Thursday, right, Pam?
We do.
And that
So,
was-
I'm happy to provide just a little
Thank
update
you.
on Sigma. As we brief the board every month, Sigma is ongoing in each of the management areas for the basin. Here in the eastern management area, we're ID1, City of Solvang, the parent district, and Santa Barbara County Water Agency. The next GSA committee meeting, Brad is the representative from ID1, is on October 24th, 6:30 p.m., Solvang City Hall. Did I get that right? 6:30 p.m. next Thursday. Right. An agenda hasn't been circulated for that, but a lot of things are ongoing in the eastern management area. I can, I guess preliminarily, project that the GSA committee will address things such as a financial update for the EMA, a presentation of what's being referred to as the intra-basin administrative agreement. This is an agreement for the eastern management area, the central management area, and the western management area to coordinate on certain administrative matters such as cost sharing where appropriate, full allocation of the $1 million grant award from DWR. That's gonna be pro rata among the three management areas of the $1 million. There'll be some updates probably on the initial components of the groundwater sustainability plan that are already prepared and are being circulated for public comment. So that's on the 24th. I do want to more specifically just give you an update that there have been 2 meetings of the Citizens Advisory Group. This is a group that was formed by the GSA committee. It's 7 members. In the EMA, there are citizen advisory groups also established in the central and the western management areas. Here we have I believe, a pretty broad representation of pumpers and users of groundwater in the eastern management area who are serving on this CAG, we call it the Citizen Advisory Committee. And the purpose and function of the CAG, if you will, is just to provide a supplemental level of public review. They in no way supplant or take over the function of the public at large for participation or providing comment. They're just a representative group that's been selected by the GSA committee. And so again, they're working on a couple of the draft components of the groundwater sustainability plan. They've met twice, once on September 5th, more recently on September 30th. They reviewed the draft communication and engagement plan. This is one of the specific components that will become part of the GSP. It's for what your plan is overall over the next couple of years for engaging the public and stakeholders in Sigma. They've provided a draft so far, but it'll be presented to the committee next Thursday. They presented a memo, a set of comments on that draft communication and engagement plan. So they're going to provide, the CAG is going to provide an update to the GSA committee next Thursday. And next Thursday also, I believe that the data management plan, component number 2 of the GSP, is going to be available for distribution to the GSA. And from that point, they may embark on a period for public comment and review and comment by the CAG too. So there's a lot going on. We always encourage all members of the public here to make sure you make it to the Sigma meetings, to participate as fully as you possibly can in Sigma. It may seem like a long way away, January 2022, when our plan is due for the overall basin, with the 3 plans, for all 3 plans, one for each management area. They're all going to have to be coordinated and due January 2022 with a 6-month public review process. That may seem like a long way away, but it's not. We're working, the whole basin is working really hard. And so we're starting off with these sort of innocuous types of components of the plan. Communication and engagement, not to say that's by any means less important substantively, but communication engagement, data management, but boy, pretty soon, in the next probably 9 months to a year, the real rubber is going to start hitting the road when they start modeling the basin and the management areas, when they start coming up with basin yields, allocations, proposed measures for how you bring the whole basin and each management area into sustainability. That's really where we're going to start to see the various interests compress and the potential intersection of X type of pumping versus Y type of pumping versus the yield of the basin versus future pumping, things like that. It's really going to get to a point where people's rights are at stake, and so we're encouraging as best we can and in every forum we can to have as much participation as we can from all cross sections of the public to get involved, get informed, and to have your voice be part of the process. So show up next Thursday, please. Brian will be our ID1 rep, and the meetings are becoming more and more well attended, I think. But the more participation we can have, absolutely the better. There's no exception to that.
Okay, great.
I just saw another well going in on Refugia. they're still going in. It's, yeah, it's gonna be big time.
Anything else?
That's it on that.
Public
Not
comment?
many of those wells are very deep, so they're there, but they're in the upper reaches, but ours are pretty deep.
That would look pretty deep,
One
though.
neighbor over at our, well over at, Royal Oaks, we have a well, Royal Oaks, right, it's a deep well. The neighbor, it used to be Cadlubeck, you know, Alice and Ed Cadlubeck, their property. Sue Wolford, their daughter, she's now owns the property, but, and her brother. The south half was sold off to attorney from New York. She just drilled a well. She drilled it into the same zone of our water production.
Oh, my.
So we're gonna be, and it's within the cone of depression, so it's gonna be, we're gonna have an issue. So,
That's gonna become the norm.
so now the encroaching into public water supply. That's it on that.
All right, let's move on to 13 reports.
When they get the permit to drill a well, they'll let you tell what the location, huh?
Should be, but now,
Yeah,
the county doesn't,
I'm surprised at that.
yeah, don't do a lot of.
They stick their nose in every damn thing else in the world.
One of the things that I mentioned a little bit earlier is this PSPS, the public safety power shutoff. We're a part of, I mentioned, we're a part of the county's roundtable process, which we, every week we get information. See you, Nick, thank you very much for the nice information. Matter of fact, I just got an OEM, alert, from County OEM, fast moving brush fire in El Capitan Canyon, evacuate areas between Dos Pueblos and Gaviota.
Nice.
Big wins today.
Dos is-
Huge wins today.
Yeah, so, that, the PSPS alert earlier this afternoon was a shutdown of power, before the winds kicked up.
Yeah.
And I don't know if, SCE did that or not.
That's tired of us.
That might be PG&E.
No,
No, that's still Southern Cal.
that's Southern Cal.
Southern Cal, yeah.
Yeah.
So PG&E's on, we're the last, we're called the Kachuma circuit, so we're the last part of the circuit here, you know. Kachuma's the end of the PG&E circuit. So that's Southern California Edison, so I don't know if they shut it down in advance of this fire, which just happened. So this was a notice at 5:24 PM, so it's.
Any traction on us getting generators?
We already planned that, so we're looking at 2 additional
I
generators.
mean, by then.
Oh, my, no, that'll never happen.
Never.
We asked for funding from state and federal and, PGD funding.
Never.
Never happened. That's what they said, basically, you're on your own, you get a priority for fuel though.
Yeah.
And so do the 60 other agencies sitting there want a priority for
Yeah.
fuel. So, okay, that's it on that, so we're prepared for any shutdowns. Our reservoirs, in fact, we got the alert, earlier, so it looks like Sunday, we could be up for a shutdown on the Kachuma circuit, which means this whole area goes down, so, we're prepared, we're filling the reservoirs now, we got an additional pump to put in, Kachuma exchange water, so we're pulling that into our system. So we're preparing our field crew, we have all the transfer switches already in place, and all we do is pull the generators around. We actually bought a fuel tank, a fuel containment, double wall tank, so we've got that in place now, so it's 1,000 gallons of fuel we can store, instead of our little 250 gallon tank, so, we're gonna have that in addition to it.
I just thought of something. Last time we had to run a generator for any length of time, we made a deal with Sanchez to come and fuel them up.
Yes.
Have we got anything in place for that now? We're gonna have to call Granite or somebody.
Yeah, we have
Service truck.
either Granite, or we can, we'll have to find, or Tierra, one of the, Tierra or Granite.
Tierra probably has a service truck.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, I never thought about it until just now.
Yeah. So that's what we've done in the past, we've contacted Granite, and, Jim Granite's son is
Yeah.
high up in Granite, so we were able to pull a few strings.
There's gonna be a shutdown this Sunday, I missed that.
Yes, it could, they've got it scheduled for Sunday, so.
NASCAR.
So that's Solvang, that's the whole
That's
valley?
it, yeah.
That's,
So-
that's what the OEM said, they gave us all the circuits, and they show us, shut down on Sunday from 1500 hours to 00, so midnight.
So do they let the residential customers know this, or this is just,
It'll probably hit the
Yeah,
news.
it is, yeah.
what, like 48 hours ahead, they're supposed to give you some
Maybe.
kind of warning?
Yeah, we'll see some warning, but.
Garbage, yeah.
Well, there's also a way to sign up for alerts, if you go to their website.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
you can put your phone in and
But
it will
it's a
send
good
you direct alerts.
Exactly, but a good example was in Northern California, the shutdown was supposed to be Thursday morning. It happened on Wednesday night.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And there was no wind event after all, and then it went 3 days without power.
Oh,
It was way over
Oh,
cautious.
my.
The state of California is really pushing these shutdowns. So, you know, it's resources and the potential for fires that are big, and California is really pushing PG and SCE to shut down, so.
The things like us, we fell through the crack, they didn't think about that.
You know, that's why we have to be.
That's horrible.
Be self-sufficient, you
Yeah.
know, and that's, we plan
Yeah,
for it.
boy.
So we're, all we need is we'll get 2 more generators, and these aren't just your little throw behind the pickup. These are big power generators, so.
Yeah, but you go around all the people that got deep freezers full of food and stuff.
Yeah.
Stores and. Okay, also, just the family farm line, we got the newsletter from Dan Kaplan. Another item is we had to respond to the civil grand jury over the consumer product contract management, which we did, and delivered to them, in the board packet. Also, there's a LAFCO item that indicates, LAFCO is looking to form the San Antonio Water Basin District. That is a landowner voter election. That was interesting on the heels of this decision. And that's.
Grand jury gonna pay attention to your comment?
They just accept them, so that's fine.
The trouble is, they don't bother finding out the fact, they just go around like, oh God, don't get me started on grand juries.
And that's a lot to swallow by a grand jury, and to try to write up years of history and contract information in 6 months or less.
3 months,
Yeah, 3 months.
June to September,
Yeah, 3 months.
90 days, you got 90 days.
All right, that's it.
Well, one last thing, let me add that I attended the City of Solvang meeting Monday. I was especially interested in the Delta conveyance and which way the wind was blowing, not only with the city council, but it was a full room. I mean, standing, they brought chairs in and everything. And it was reminiscent of this. There's not a lot of people that are buying what they're selling there as far as the Delta conveyance. So anyway, just want to make the board aware that I attended and talked with some people, and yeah.
Great.
Well, we're old to know, so they don't have a lot of choices, they're on our church bill.
Yeah, they're not real big on that piece of information, I know. You're absolutely right, my friend, you're absolutely right. They seem to get that.
Harlan, you attended the ops committee, right, for CCW?
Right.
You attended the ops committee for CCW on
I did,
Thursday?
and the consensus seemed to be then, was, I can't say that for everybody else, but, and it's, let's see, there was a couple people missing. One of them was there, Barbara, I'm sorry, they were, he came late. But anyway, that's the pulse. Talking about Solvang, we need to make a run at them, to let them put their own $3 million up and put that in some kind of an escrow account and let us get ours back. We can sure use it,
Yeah. You know,
only if they put it in an escrow account.
that's true.
Chris, did you want to report, or maybe, if you don't mind if I report that?
Yeah.
For instance, talking about the $3 million we have in reserves, what occurred this last month was Solvang missed their payment deadline for us, for their state water
Oh, is
project.
that
Oh, nice.
interesting?
So I stayed on them, And I don't think I know they're going through a big transition over there, with the new city manager. And, Karen and I actually got into phone and email communications with her. I don't think she understood it until I brought Matt Vanderlinden into the fold of this.
Sad.
And then Matt Vanderlinden said, you need to act on this immediately, because I indicated to him, you're now in default of the water supply agreement. We'll be issuing a default notice to you. And it was, a day later that we did get their payment. So it does occur, so, but, you know, we know it was from the transition that was occurring over
Well,
there.
yeah, drop the ball.
Yeah.
Hey, they did it their first 7 years in a row.
Yeah, Jim did.
Don't worry about that.
So, but we did receive it.
Every
Thank you
time
so much, Mary,
Virginia would
for
have
saying
to
that.
drive in
I
there
didn't
and
know
get
that.
that.
Extremely impressive, but,
Well, they're going through a big chaotic change with no city
it's
manager.
an understatement.
Yeah. It's a tough.
Yeah, I feel bad for them.
Yeah.
So what, okay, correspondence, nothing, Chris? We're all good?
Yeah, number 2, what's happening with those guys? What are the top payment arrangements, number 2 and number 6?
Car service account payment arrangement.
Well, somebody could be there 6 months and pay the bills.
They had a large leak,
Huh.
so,
Yeah, we made.
Okay, how about, Mr. Beck, number 4?
Oh, he wants to get, Harlan, our friend, wants to, have a rate reduction, change his,
Why?
meter classification. Here we go again. You know, 6 years
Did he
ago.
got all of his meters this time, or
He wants to go back to an ag meter.
he wants the meter size because?
Yeah, he wants to go back and.
we'll see the ag classification, the ag rate.
Yeah, he wants to go back to ag rates.
And number 12, meter test results for Steve Perlman, that's my neighbor, what's happening, you get a leak down there or something?
That was, a question about meter accuracy.
Yeah, he thought, the meter wasn't working properly, so we went through our process that we have, where we pull the meter out, get a deposit from the customer, send it in for testing from an outside source, and then they send the test results back. And it was 98% accuracy.
Because I'm wondering what's going on, nobody there, he's an absentee owner, they,
Right.
there's 2 guys that own that in LA, they are pretty, occasionally.
Yeah.
I didn't know whether they had a leak or something, whether meter test was coming.
Is this like Brown's property?
Yes.
Blue chamber.
Yeah. Okay. that's
Anything
our
else?
correspondence.
Okay, so we're all good for the next meeting on November 19th, does that look doable?
Looks right.
Yeah? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you like that,
I don't think we do, we have a closed session.
Well, we'll have, two, for the November meeting, we're gonna have, 2 presentations. One will be by the Barbara Wells for rate verification, so Alex Ambrose is coming, and the second one is,
Audit.
the audit report. Okay, cool. So, what do you do?
So why don't we take a short recess in between? Yeah?
Perfect. So, very short, low, 7:06.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
And then we got to, we'll whip through the closed session.
Yeah, he's staying in.
I got it.